Good evening, everybody. I have 6:31, so I will open up tonight's Mashpee Conservation Commission meeting for Thursday, August 8th, 2024. We are meeting in the Quiet Meeting Room, Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North, broadcast live on local cable channel 8, and also streamed live on the Town of Mashpee website. Before we begin, if you would like to join me in a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to start with a moment of silence. If you would remember those people in the western part of the country that are suffering from tremendous forest fires, and those in the southeastern part of the country with the recent floods from the hurricane. Thank you. I will start with public comment, and this would be for any issues that are not related to agenda items that we have posted for tonight's meeting. So if there's someone who would like to address the commission, this would be the time. I don't see anyone. I don't think we have anybody online, Drew, for that. Didn't think there was, but no.
Nope.
Okay, and is Catherine here?
She's having some audio problems. She can't hear the meeting, so Dan's trying to check it out.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You could open up the first hearing because it's going to be continued anyway if you want to do that in the meantime.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to begin with tonight's first hearing, the 6:30 hearing for 135 Daniels Island Road, New Seabury Marina, LLC. This is a proposed marina expansion and improvement dredging. Representative is Ty and Bond, Inc., and this hearing is continued from 4/18, 5/9, 5/23, 6/13, and 6/27. This is a notice of intent, DEP file number 433287. And we do have a request from the representative to continue this hearing to September 12th of 24 at 6:33. Do we have a rationale for the request?
It's the Waterways Commission. They've been trying to schedule a meeting because they wanted to have a meeting with the folks at the marina, and they settled on August 14th.
August 14th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It just took a while to kind of logistically organize this meeting.
A lot of moving parts.
Yeah, exactly.
So August 14th is the Waterways hearing.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to continue the hearing for 135 Daniels Island Road to September 12th at 6:33 p.m.
Thank you, Steve.
I'll second.
Thank you, Alex. So motion is made and seconded for the continuance as presented. Any further discussion by commissioners? We're all set. Roll call vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Sarah? I think she said yes.
She did, but we can't hear her.
Can you raise your hand, Sarah, if that's a yes? Okay, thank you. And I vote yes as well. So that's unanimous.
At least she can hear us, but that's weird.
Yeah.
Your mute button's on.
Well, she just turned it on. She had it off before.
How about that? Is that
All right,
any
we can
better?
hear you
Go,
now.
perfect.
Okay, all right.
Welcome.
Thanks, yes.
Is Catherine's
She's
audio?
good.
Okay. Before I go on to the next hearing, I am going to back up here a little bit. And under pre- and post-hearing agenda item, administrative approval request, Town of Mashpee, DPW, Catherine Laurent. This is Route 130 Mill Pond Dam, Mass Office of Dam Safety Requirements. Good evening, Catherine.
Good evening. Thank you. So I am here to ask for administrative approval for the DPW to go in and do some work on the dam that's located at the Route 130 Fishway. Our most recent inspection found the dam to be in poor condition, and a lot of that was due to the woody vegetative growth on the earthen portion of the dam. And I did include with the packet the policy from the Office of Dam Safety that explained their rationale for that. As of right now, because we are under an order and the certificate of non-compliance, we're required to conduct inspections of the dam every 6 months unless we make certain improvements, which would be removal of that vegetative material. So what I submitted was a plan to go ahead and accomplish that over the next month. As you may know from the updates from the conservation agent, the town has recently signed a contract that is looking at options to either remove and or replace the dam. That's something that is going to take us a little bit of time to complete the design and then fund the construction. But the Office of Dam Safety had indicated that as long as we address certain of the deficiencies, then they would be satisfied and would remove the requirement for those inspections every 6 months, which is at a cost of about $2,000 to the town every 6 months.
Okay, thank you. Questions from commissioners? There's a lot of growth in there.
Yeah, this is good to get it done.
Catherine, I do have a question. When are you proposing to do this work?
So I'm saying sometime within the next month. We do have some other projects that we're committed to at the schools to try to get the schools ready for the start of the new school year. So it could be within another 2 to 3 weeks before we would start.
Okay. And this is the fish run that is adjacent to the reservation property?
It's the dam structure is actually at Route 130, right where the river crossing is.
Okay. Yeah, I just, I was aware that the herring actually will migrate back around October, November. Mm-hmm. So, and of course, this is not going to disrupt their migration back.
No, and we would propose to have the work done well before then.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Any other questions? Catherine, I know in reading through the material, it was specifically stated that on any given day, there would be no more cut than what could be stabilized. And then there was a layout for day 1, day 2, day 3, and so forth. My question is, once the project begins, would the days be consecutive, or would there be breaks of time between, say, day 2 and day 3, or?
We would propose consecutive days. So we would take a look at the weather, make sure that there weren't any issues that would cause us to have to delay. But once we started, and the 4 days is the maximum, hopefully we would get it accomplished sooner than that. But it would be consecutive days, yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No? Comments, questions from agents?
Only that I would encourage that this work be done sooner than later. As herring warden, it's difficult to get in there and kind of do inspections and check the herring run with such wild overgrowth, and most of the growth there is actually invasive species. But most importantly, this is a safety issue for a dam that's been classified as a significant hazard because of the culvert and Route 130 and all the associated infrastructure around it. So.
Sure. Yep. Okay. Questions from the public? Hearing none, I would accept a motion.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve the work for the Route 130 Mill Pond Dam. It's not an
Administrative.
notice of intent or an RDA.
No, it's
so
administrative
just say
approval.
Administrative approval.
Right. Okay.
And I'll second.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Alex. Motion made and seconded to approve the request for administrative approval. Any further discussion by commissioners? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Motion carries. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Good luck. Now calling the 6:33 hearing for 19 Aquay Bay Road, Krasin Dragunov, trustee, 19 Aquay Bay Realty Trust. This is a proposed extension of an existing dock. Representative is Cape and Islands Engineering. This is a notice of intent, DEP file number 433305. Good evening.
Good evening, Mark Dibb with Cape and Islands Engineering. So we submitted a notice of intent application for 19 Aquay Bay Road for Krasin Dragunov for a proposed pier extension. The existing property is a developed single-family residence. You can see on the left of the plan, it's kind of cut off, but that's where the house is. There's an existing concrete patio and pool, and then the existing boardwalk down towards the water, and then the existing licensed boardwalk, ramp, and float, which extend out into Aquay Bay. If you did get to visit the site, you'll see that the last two piles of the existing pier are in the salt marsh, and then the ramp extends out to the float that's in the water. And that float is sitting in literally just 3 or 4 inches of water at mean low tide. So it's very deficient in water depth where the existing licensed pier, ramp, and float is. So the proposal tonight is to extend from there out, basically trying to get as far as possible, but we're also considering the 2 neighboring piers. You know, we don't want to interrupt navigation, and at the location proposed, we're able to achieve about 1 foot of water where the boat would be mooring or berthing up against this pier. So any new piles would be beyond the salt marsh, so there would be no disturbance to the salt marsh. There will be 12 10-inch piles for the fixed portion of the pier, as well as the 4 piles holding the float in its location. Just feel that both for the users as well as the environment and standards for this type of project, by not having a boat go all the way into that existing pier, we feel that the actual extension out further is less impact than the current existing condition. We did receive I think Drew probably has this, some comments or a response from both Shellfish and the harbor master with, as far as I can see, no real concerns. And I'd like to hand it over to the commission. If you have any questions, be happy to answer.
Thank you. Okay, I'll open it up to commissioners first for questions you might have.
I have a question, if nobody else does at the moment.
Okay, Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, Mark. I'm looking at the Division of Marine Fisheries response to seeing the proposal, and I wondered if you could speak to their note and recommendation on the clearance between the lowest part of the dock and the salt marsh. They have a minimum ratio here for the parts of the dock that go over the salt marsh, and they do say that the current plans are not clearly communicating that clearance. So I wonder if you could maybe speak to that before we deliberate?
Yeah, so we did, I did receive these comments when they came in, and took a look at that. And the existing pier is about 4.5 feet clearance. So it's a little over 1-to-1. What they're saying is if you have a 4-foot wide pier, they like to have 6 feet of clearance over that salt marsh. But the existing pier that's been there a while is at about 4.5 feet separation. At this point, we don't have any proposal to modify the existing structure, but that's the information.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Mark, what size boat are they planning to put on this float?
They currently have I have that information here somewhere. They currently have a 14-foot Edgewater. I'm not a boat guy, but they provided that information as a 12-inch draft. They are interested in purchasing a WorldCat catamaran that has a 14-inch draft. So that's right around the depths we're at. So that's nothing more than that. They fully understand the water depths in this area.
So, from a 14-foot boat to possibly a 20?
Yeah, I think
foot,
that's in the
20,
25 range.
26, in that range?
It's
Okay.
that, it is a
I'm a boat
catamaran
guy.
that has, it is a catamaran that has,
Okay.
I think for that reason of having a relatively short, would that be the way to look at a 14-inch draft? Shallow draft, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because, right at low tide, you're right at.
You're at it.
Yeah,
You're right there, yeah.
Yeah. So the boat would be sitting on the
On
bottom
it.
at low tide, so.
If that happens, their current boat is a 14-foot Edgewater, 12-inch draft.
Yeah, it's not far. It's only a couple inches away from that, too. So,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah, they'd love to go further out, but, then we could start interrupting navigation or just the use of the other piers.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just concerned that a larger boat would sit on the bottom there. So did they look into getting a mooring further out in deeper water for a larger boat?
Haven't discussed that with my client,
Okay.
so I don't have an answer to that.
That's all I have.
I would just say,
Alex?
yeah, this isn't really so much a question for Mark, but I noticed that the shellfish is saying that no mitigation fee is required for this. So since this is not, we're not getting mitigation through a fee for shellfishing, would we require mitigation in the form of plantings for the footprint of the dock? So it'd be a 2-to-1 ratio. You're looking at almost 400 square feet of plantings, like along the bank. So that would be my question, is whether or not we would want to condition that or not.
Anything else? Mark, I'll chime in at this point. In the packet that you provided under 5.1, land under ocean, you stated that adverse effects to marine productivity, fisheries habitat, and wildlife habitat are not anticipated as a result of the project activities. Yet when I read the letter from Division of Marine Fisheries, they were very much concerned about winter flounder, this being an area that they've labeled as habitat area of particular concern. Could you give us some information about your concerns now that you've hoped that there wasn't going to be an effect, but according to the Marine Division of Fisheries, it seems they're concerned about the winter flounder habitat.
I mean, I just feel like that by not having a boat of any size trespass that extra 90 feet in the shallow water, I just feel strongly that even though there is the piles and the additional, you know, the actual footprint of 16 posts is 8.71 square feet, by not having the prop wash, the resuspension of fines, by having a boat trying to get in to that area, you know, I definitely agree that the addition of posts is reduction of just area, but I think the overall impact could be reduced by keeping boats out of that shallow water and just, you know, not accessing that inner part of the bay.
And are there float stops proposed with this? Because it is quite shallow, even if you were to get out to where you're targeting.
Currently, we're proposing them at 12 inches.
At 12 inches?
Yes.
And this is saying that the bottom of a proposed float has to be at least 2.5 feet above the substrate over marine habitat.
Yeah, I mean, that's their suggestion. At that point, this dock is going to be hanging in the air 80% of the time. So, I mean, it would be a, I mean, 18 inches might be something that would not, you know, that could work, but I just don't see trying to meet the exact recommendation that they have as, even at this further out location, as potentially feasible for this project.
I don't believe Regulation 27, does that, do you have a specific value, Drew, on boat stops in Regulation 27?
I don't think there's any specific wording on float stops. We usually defer to marine fisheries for recommendations, or what's at least achievable, you know.
Sure.
Based on Division of Marine Fishery recommendations.
So if the float isn't as high as their recommendation, and if the pier is not as high as their recommendation, you are you're saying that the piles are the only square footage that you would consider being a footprint? You don't think that the dock and the pier would count as footprint to be the closer to 400 square feet of mitigation at a 2-to-1?
Not saying that. I feel strongly that the environmental benefit of staying out of that shallower water could offset the square footages by the extended pier. Obviously, yes, there's additional square footage of both float, pile, aerial pier, but I just still feel it's an improvement over a boat trying to access the existing pier.
So, one of the questions I do have is the letter from Marine Fisheries states that, that the piles would displace shellfish habitat, but the under the shellfish warden, they don't warrant a shellfish mitigation fee, so it seems like we got opposite.
It also says that it would be marine habitat and that the winter flounder, breeding and spawning area.
Right, but it says support piles with directly displaced shellfish habitat. And piles may cause further indirect impacts that negatively affect bordering shellfish habitat.
Right, which maybe it would once the water's cleaned up.
Right.
It
So-
probably doesn't right now, because it's,
They map a lot of, they have these areas mapped, they've been mapped for years as what's designated as shellfish habitat just because of the proximity to near shore areas and what would be viable shellfish habitat under perfect conditions, or better conditions than the current water quality. So I think there's a bit of a disconnect between how marine fisheries formats and their recommendations based on, as compared to the existing conditions, because they don't send people out to evaluate,
Right,
you
so
know,
the
as-
local,
nearly as often as the shellfish constable.
Yeah.
So that's why we defer to him, because he's got eyes on the ground. He's more knowledgeable about current conditions than marine fisheries is. I understand where they're coming from, because it is mapped shellfish habitat, so they have to make those recommendations. But as far as the existing water quality conditions, is, you know, in terms of viable shellfish habitat, this area is, the substrate is all muck. It's, you know, so, not saying that it couldn't be viable shellfish habitat someday, and hopefully it will be, but currently, it's really not. And
Okay.
it's probably limited as far as winter flounder habitat as well, just because of that mucky substrate. But nonetheless, it's mapped and identified as habitat for both those species by marine fisheries.
okay. Yeah, I just want to clarify that because
Yeah.
it seems like there was a,
No, it's
Just a
always going to be
difference.
that way. We see that in a number of dock projects, that they always come back with the same comments, but they're not as familiar with the existing conditions and how they evolve over the years as local staff is. So, and not to say that they couldn't be contacted to say, well, when's the last time you were out there? You know, have you seen what the existing conditions are? It might be worth, you know, reaching out from the applicant to Division Marine Fisheries to find out when was the last time you were out in this area to assess the viability of habitat for these species.
it doesn't even matter. I mean, if it could be habitat,
Yeah,
that they're looking at it as like it could be habitat.
right, that's
So,
where I was,
That's, I
yeah.
think we have to think about that too.
Yep.
Anything else?
Yeah, Paul, this is Sarah again. I think I just, you know, for the commissioners and the applicant, you know, I do have some pretty significant concerns that it seems like this project is just not able to meet the recommended specifications from Division of Marine Fisheries for protecting habitat. And I understand maybe the inconvenience of having a grounded boat. And I wonder if there are, you know, other nearby places where the boat could be docked, but you know, my concern and our concern, of course, is the resource area and the water quality and the habitat for the wildlife that can't go find somewhere else to be. So I do have some concerns about that, and it looks as though that the activities, several facets of the activities would cause significant adverse impacts to the resource area. So that's where I'm at this moment on this project.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from agents?
I do have a few.
Sure.
So, I do understand the need to achieve greater water depth, given that you're a few inches away from bottom sediment in the existing float location, so I think that's understood as far as the intent. Couple of things to touch on from marine fisheries. They do recommend that, you know, disturbances try to be minimized to the greatest extent possible for this entire proposal. So I would suggest that the float size remain the same. This is all predicated on if the commission finds this acceptable proposal. And that the proposed decking, which is planking, according to the project narrative and the plan and profile view, that the commission, if they were to approve this, require through-flow decking for the entire length of the existing structure. The existing structure and the proposed extension should all be through-flow decking and not planking. Float stops should be maintained at a minimum of 1.2 feet separation, not 12 inches, from the bottom sediment. And this is for this project and any projects moving forward when it comes to water-dependent projects that fall under the jurisdiction of Chapter 91. I think it would be beneficial for the commission to actually see a copy of the Chapter 91 license so we can be assured that it's been recorded and whether it's valid or expired. There could be conditions put in place to restrict engine draft based on the vessels that are moored at the float. And another DMF recommendation is that any piles that are to be removed as part of this project, they must be removed entirely instead of being cut off at the base where it meets the sediment and left in place. So just to kind of summarize, if the commission were to approve this project, through-flow decking would be, the conditions would be through-flow decking along the entire stretch of the fixed pier, existing and proposed. Float size to remain the same as the existing float or even reduced more if feasible. Provide specific information on engine draft of all vessels to be moored, and we could put a restriction on the draft that's allowed, which I would say no more than 12 inches. And provide status of existing Chapter 91 license, and if it's recorded, and whether it's valid or not. If it's expired or if it's valid. No other comments.
Thank you.
Can you just repeat the part about the piles?
So if they have to remove is there any piles to be removed? The float piles, I would imagine, have to be removed to be
Yeah.
replaced at a further. So when they take those out, Marine Fisheries has said, I guess it might be some practice in similar applications to saw off where the piles meet the bottom sediment because they go 10, 15 feet under.
Yeah.
So removing everything out
Should
and
be
not leaving any
fully removed
portion
from substrate.
underground. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And that would have to be done with a barge, right?
Yes.
I would assume so.
And
Yeah.
there'd be restriction on the time period because of the depth of the water.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah. Which we could reach out to Marine Fisheries too, because there may be a time of year restriction when it comes to winter flounder, not disrupting that habitat. So Marine Fisheries could be contacted to implement that time of year restriction for work to take place. So minimize disturbance to winter flounder habitat by putting in that time of year restriction based on Marine Fisheries input.
I thought we just saw that.
Is
Was
it in
it
there?
on
I
this?
wasn't sure. It may already be in the letter,
I
but
thought I was reading it somewhere here.
I know we have had, they've recommended time of year restrictions for winter flounder,
That it's like January to March or something.
something like that, yeah.
And then DMF also states, activities requiring a barge would be restricted to 2 hours before and after high tide.
Yeah,
So that
contractors are
4 hour.
aware of that. They don't want to ground it any more
Right.
than we want them to.
Right.
We don't need to make that a condition then.
We can make it a condition just to have it in writing. I don't know, Mark, if that's acceptable to your client, if you want to come back with them about the through-flow decking, but I think that would alleviate a lot of DMF concerns over just the overall footprint of this existing fixed pier and the proposed extension, reducing shading, things like that. So I don't know if you need to go back to your client or if that's something that, you can speak to, or all of those conditions, suggested conditions.
I guess if I could just roughly poll, are you even thinking of all those conditions in approval tonight, or are you looking for, because I agree, the through-flow decking would be a major upgrade over the salt marsh areas, and
I think if there's opportunity for upland mitigation, like Alex had mentioned, roughly 400 square feet, I'm sure there's probably some opportunity on this lot to implement some mitigation to beef up the buffer zone to the coastal bank or beef up the bank itself. That would be another condition if the commission felt it was warranted.
I think at this point, I'd like to request a continuance to be able to review everything with my client, and I do think, I don't know if you have availability at the next meeting or not, but I just request that.
Yeah, that'd be August 22nd at 6:39.
What was the time, Dan?
6:39?
6:39.
Do you need you need a list for everything, or do
I
you
got
have?
it.
You got it, okay. Okay. Mr. Chairman, make a motion to continue 19 Aquay Bay Road to August 22nd at what time, Dan?
6:39.
6:39 PM.
And I'll second.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Alex. Motion made and seconded for the continuance. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Just to clarify, there were some comments after that, said there was an abutter letter. That's a mistake. There was no letter from an abutter.
It was?
There was not.
There was
Yeah,
not.
no abutter letter.
Okay.
Just a typo.
I missed that. Glad there wasn't. Okay. Now calling the 6:36 hearing for 409 Monomoskoye Road, Thomas J. and Michelle Gard, trustees, TM Gard Nominee Trust, proposed reconfiguration of an existing float attached to an existing pier, remove associated piles. Representative is Cape and Islands Engineering. This hearing is continued from June 27th. It's a notice of intent, DEP file number 433303. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Isari from Cape and Islands Engineering and Steve Gard, who is the attorney for the applicant, Tom Gard, who's also in the audience with us tonight. This notice of intent was continued from a couple of weeks ago, but it was not open. So this is the first time that we're actually presenting the project to this commission. The project is for modifications to an existing floating pier. The existing float is on a T configuration, and what the homeowner wants to do is rotate it to be parallel or in line with the main body of the pier. Currently, there is 2 piles on the float, and there are 2 tie-off piles a distance away from the float. What the applicant wants to do is rotate the float and hold it in place with 4 piles so that we can put flow stops for this float, and then remove and relocate the 2 tie-off piles. The setback from the tie-off piles to the floating pier is similar to the setback that is there today, and there's no other changes proposed at this time. The narrative for this notice of intent did mention something about 6 piles, existing 6 piles, but that reference has to do with the RDA that was approved last year for the replacement of 6 deteriorated piles on the main body of the pier. So that's not that there is 6 piles in part of the existing float and tie-off piles. Those 6 piles are separate, but we are proposing 6 piles, 4 for the float and 2 as tie-off. The tie-off are just similar to the existing one, but the 4 float piles will propose in flow stops so that at extreme low tides, this float is not bottoming out. It is a recommendation that usually we get through DMF, both here at the level of the Conservation Commission and at the level of waterways when we go for licenses. So that's essentially the proposal. And if there's any questions, we'll try to answer.
I might add that we are replacing the float. So the existing float will be reconstructed and using new, more modern materials, like the plastic tubs as opposed to the blue foam flotation device that they have on it now. So in summary, we're asking to turn the float and add 2 pilings to hold the float in place.
Okay. Thank you. Questions from commissioners?
Is the decking being replaced as a part of this too?
On the pier itself?
Yeah.
No. No.
Okay.
Decking will remain. The previous approval was just to replace the penciled out pilings that are holding up the pier. You remember the pictures,
Yeah.
they kind of go like a pencil at the bottom. And he held off on doing that because we kind of knew we were going to come back to do this, so he'd like to do it all at one shot.
And the decking that's out there though, was that proposed to be replaced with the RDA? I feel like, doesn't the whole thing need to be replaced?
Well,
So to remove the piles, you have to take away the existing superstructure and then put it back.
Okay, are you putting it back with new wood or not?
No, I think we were gonna reuse the decking that
For
was
the
there.
section that's there, we're not doing the entire thing, it's just the middle section, so we don't have to dismantle the entire pier, if that's what you're trying to think.
Well, yeah, I was just wondering if there's an opportunity to do the through-flow decking here or not, especially since you are more over salt marsh than
Right.
the other project that we just heard. When that goes back, but I don't know.
Well, that portion of the work is completely over water, not over the marsh.
Well, I mean, it's still, you're still in habitat for shellfish and whatnot, so it would still be helpful.
I don't think it was intended to replace the decking. I think that the way the piles are constructed, that they can be
Reused.
disconnected from the structure one at a time and, put back in place without having to disturb too much of the actual structure.
Okay.
At least, we haven't consulted with the contractor yet, but
Yeah.
I would assume that they were going to do it as least invasive as possible, especially, and for cost as well. I'm thinking they can probably get them out, cut the bolts off, and get them back in.
Other questions?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. So, Raul, what's the reason again for turning this float 90 degrees?
So, the applicant believes this is a better way of docking his boat with the propeller on a deeper water.
Right.
Than current conditions. So the propeller for the boat will be at the 4.5 more or less foot of water, instead of like current 2.5 foot of water.
Right.
Okay, yeah, because you have 3 right underneath the float,
Right.
2.5 at the bow. Because when I was out there today, you had 3 boats on the dock. Looks like you had a 35-foot sport fisherman there.
Right.
Then it looks like there was a 26 or 27-foot center console and a smaller boat.
Right, scale,
So
yeah.
it looks like the center console, if you're saying it's 2 at low tide, that looks like, what's the draft on that boat? Looks like that's sitting on the bottom at low tide.
The center console probably only draws about 2.5 at the motors, so it's only gonna be drawing, 18 inches throughout the midsection of the boat up to the bow. The big thing is the sport fish draws, probably 3 feet, 3.5 feet, and getting its wheels and props turned the other way is gonna put that equipment out into the river in deeper water, especially when you're maneuvering in and out. Less chance of him to, kick up the bottom when he's leaving and kick up the bottom when he's coming in.
Right, so you're showing 2.5 at the edge of the existing float. And
Yeah,
then you-
there's 2.5, right, at the edge of the existing float, and then when you come back out further, it's 4.8, 4.9, it's almost 5 feet,
Right, so what's the size of that sport fisherman?
38 feet,
38 feet?
yeah,
So if you have a 25-foot float,
yep,
and you're saying that the bow is going to be at the front, at the land side of the float at 2.5 feet, so you mean the bow is going to be, you said that draws 2.5 feet?
yeah, the bow will go in.
Right,
yeah.
so
No,
you're
I
saying-
said that, what I said was the center console draws 2.5 feet at the motors.
Right,
And then you put the motors up when you tie it up, so that would be.
right, but
But
the sport fisherman draws 3.5 feet?
At the props. It's a very low
Okay.
draft at the bow.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe
What's the-
tops would be 18 inches, probably 20, 24 inches at the
Okay,
top.
so
tops.
it's pretty close to bottoming out there. So if you're saying that the
Yeah.
bow is at the land side of the pier, and then the float's 25 feet, so you're going on another 13 feet past.
We're getting it further out. No,
Okay,
well,
so-
it'll be further out. I mean, it's sitting there right now. I mean, right now, it's at the 2.5 foot mark. That's where the boat ties up.
Right, so.
It doesn't
I'm-
ground at low tide now.
I'm just concerned that you're turning this float 90 degrees, and it's already pretty tight out there, looking at it now, and now you're gonna be out another 13 feet beyond the edge of the float, almost into the channel.
Well, I
I
think,
understand the deeper water, I understand why
Yeah.
you're turning it, but I'm just concerned that the length of the boat is just gonna narrow that whole channel up, and
I don't think,
cause
oh, you
issues.
mean the channel. Well, we're not anywhere near the channel, the edge of the channel. The harbor master's already looked at that and signed off on the plan, right, Raul?
So, right,
We're
yeah.
23 feet away from, the edge of the dock is 23 feet away.
There was
So
a-
if the 38-foot ties up on a 24-foot dock, it's, you're going to have maybe 6 or 7 feet over the bow and 6 or 7 feet over the end of the float on the other end where the transom is.
Okay, so then the bow's gonna be in where you got 1.8 feet, so is that gonna be sitting on the bottom there?
I don't think so, no. It won't be that far in. It goes up to almost 2 feet. We've had that regulator in over there, and it doesn't touch bottom. So I don't see that as being an issue.
And the channel, the town did present it before this board, a plan for a dredging on Little River, and they defined a 50-foot channel. And from that defined channel is what we're showing here on this plan, from what the town plans on the dredging. These soundings that we have here do not include the dredging that the town is planning. So the town is planning to dredge deeper water here. So eventually, there'll be even better depths from what we have depicted on these plans.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
I have a couple of questions.
Sure, Sarah, go ahead.
Paul, if that's okay. Thank you. Raul, good evening. I saw that in our agent comments for the project that we did hear back from the harbor master and the shellfish constable, there is a mitigation fee that's been recommended. I wonder if we've got any word from Division of Marine Fisheries on this project. The project that we just discussed, the letter from DMF says, and I quote, "Support piles will directly displace shellfish habitat, and piles may cause further indirect impacts that negatively affect bordering shellfish habitat. Leachates from any pressure-treated wood used for support piles or decking may also negatively impact nearby shellfish." And I'm connecting that because the Shellfish Constable has assessed a mitigation fee that we are disrupting shellfish habitat. So first question is if we have any word back from DMF. And the second question is whether or not the applicant would be willing to consider reducing the number of piles to minimize that disturbance.
So yes, on the first question, we did receive a letter back in July 22nd from DMF. I believe conservation staff was copied in this letter. What they do recommend is to avoid grounding. They recommend flow stops. If approved, any activity requiring a barge should be restricted to 2 hours before and after high tide. Fuel spills from refueling adversely impacts sensitive resource areas, so any refueling to be done off-site. But that letter is in the record from DMF. In terms of the piles, we do want to have the 4 piles for the float and the 2 tie-off piles to keep the float from harming the boat from harming the float, and the 4 float piles to be able to put the flow stops.
Okay, and forgive me, I'm not a float or deck or pier engineer or a boat person. Is that not possible to accomplish with fewer piles, the float stops?
No, because of the length of this float at 25 feet. When a float is supported by flow stops, it's suddenly acting as a fixed pier. So we need that support and not have it tipping over when there's only 2 piles supporting a structure that's trying to be fixed. So we need support on either side, and for the spans of 25 feet on the opposite end as well.
Okay, and are there alternatives to that fixed pier that would work for the purposes you're seeking the modifications for? I don't know, I'm so sorry, I don't know anything about docks and floats. I'm just wondering if any alternatives have been considered to reduce the disturbance to the shellfish habitat.
So not for holding the pier in a fixed position during low tides. We do need the 4 corners to be supported, structurally supported.
Okay, understood. Thank you. And I did want to shout out appreciation for getting rid of the styrofoam floats in favor of plastic.
Okay. All set? No other questions?
I do
Steve?
have another one.
Sure.
Raul, when were these photographs in your application? When were they taken?
It could have been sometime to that 2023, maybe even late 2022. We did a notice of intent for this project or this property last year for the proposed garage. So we visited the site and we did a lot of the survey on that first go-around. We did some supplemental surveying when we started working for the pier. So there could be a combination of different times when we when we took those
Okay.
pictures.
So just, I'm concerned is there's in your photographs, there's 3 boats on the dock. Those are totally 3 different boats than the 3 boats that are there now. Is this dock being used as a community dock?
No, it's a single family.
Okay, so those 3 boats have been sold and you got 3 newer boats?
He's only on the 3 boats that were there when you went and saw it. I don't know anything about the other 3 boats.
Well, there's 3 different boats in these photographs than what's there now.
Can I see
So,
them? Just curious.
yeah, I'm just,
Yeah, these must have been before we bought it. They're not his boats. He's my
Okay.
brother. I mean, I know his boats.
yeah,
It's
because
not
those
his
are boats that are there now.
Yeah, those are his boats.
Okay,
Yeah, these are not his boats. He's never let anybody tie up there.
okay. I'm just
No,
trying to
he's never
clarify
rented a slip out.
the applications there, so, yeah.
Whose boats are those? Not yours.
You can grab the
I know
mic.
they're not
Yeah.
yours. No, go ahead.
Just make sure you give your name for the record before you speak, please.
Thomas Guard, good evening, everyone.
Yeah, Steve, just show him the picture.
Microphone, please.
This picture would have been well before I bought the property. So it would
Okay.
have been at least before, sometime before 2020. These aren't, yeah, there's,
Okay, just
Yeah, they're not
trying to
his.
clarify.
yeah, no.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's a good question.
Okay, yeah.
I think the previous owner did let people tie up there, but it wasn't, yeah, he doesn't do that.
Okay,
Unless it's me, and he'll let me
Alright.
tie up there.
okay. Thank you.
Okay? Drew, comments?
I do have a couple of questions, because I know we've had some back and forth correspondence over 2 piles versus 4. And I understand, some of the points made as far as, Division of Marine Fisheries. And I apologize, I actually did a search for the comment letter and made a mistake. I thought it hadn't been received, but it has. I just double checked my email just to verify that. So I apologize to the commission for saying it hadn't been received. It has. It does have the standard comments from Division of Marine Fisheries when it comes to dock and pier projects. One of the things, that I'm a little bit kind of, I guess, confused about with DMF comments in this regard is the existing depth contours, which are taken at low tide. In order to maintain a 2.5-foot separation from the bottom, you've already got 2.5 feet on the landward side of the float, and then it increases to 4.5 to 4.9 feet on the seaward side. So, while it probably is good practice to have float stops, I'm not sure it's absolutely necessary here. And if you're really looking to reduce impacts to the habitat or adverse impacts in general, you want to reduce the number of piles which are directly impacting shellfish habitat. And this is viable shellfish habitat based on the feedback from our shellfish constable. I also spoke with Mark Burtis from South Cape Docks to get his opinion, his expert opinion, because he's been installing docks for longer than I've been agent in the town, and wanted to get his opinion on when you reorient floats like this, if 2 piles are sufficient for stabilizing, because one of the points that was made is that there were stabilization issues with just 2 piles, maybe in this particular location. Mark's highly familiar with docks and piers on Monomoskoye and in Little River. He's probably installed most of them. And he assured me that a pile on each end of this float would accommodate a 50-foot-long boat without any stability issues whatsoever. We see a lot of Cape and Islands plans with 4 piles replacing 2 pile-supported floats, and I'm questioning, is there really a need for that particularly in this instance when you have adequate water depth despite what Division of Marine Fisheries is recommending. And I'm really leaning towards the direct impact to shellfish habitat here, despite what Marine Fisheries is recommending as float stops. I don't think they're 100% necessary. Maybe they could be revisited in the future. But if you are looking to truly reduce impacts, you want to reduce the number of piles. You've got 2 additional tie-off piles here that are being relocated, which is going to cause some impact to shellfish habitat as well. So based on my conversation with Mark Burtis, and, you know, looking at this in terms of the true need for float stops, even though Marine Fisheries is recommending them, it's not a requirement, it's up to the discretion of the commission. I don't see the need for 4 piles here. I think 2 piles is sufficient. It will reduce impact to shellfish habitat. I'm sure the Shellfish Constable would probably agree. And that would be my recommendation, is to keep it at 2.
But can I ask a question, Drew? But do we really have the 2.5-foot separation? If we have 2.5 feet of water at mean low water, the tubs themselves are going to take up 8 or 9 inches of water because they don't sit at the surface of the water. They're going to dip down below 2 feet as the float sits there. So I don't think we have the full 2.5 feet of separation from the substrate as recommended by the DMF letter.
Well, which one is going to result in more cumulative impact? The permanent impact and displacement of shellfish habitat from additional piles, or the occasional grounding or coming close to grounding of a float every once in a while? That's my, I mean, that's always the kind of approach that I take, is cumulative impact.
Certainly not a marine biologist, but I can only go by what the Department of Marine Fisheries, who are much smarter than me on the
I
issues,
just see a lot of floats with excessive number of piles, and I just don't think it's necessary. And when I talk to an expert in the field and go, you know, I'm inclined to go with his recommendation about what he feels based on his significant experience about what is going to stabilize this float and what is necessary as opposed to excessive. The other comments I have is that I think there should be a requirement, a condition, if the commission approves this project, that we get documented boat engine draft information about the vessels to be moored here, how many vessels are being proposed to be moored at this float and at the tie-off piles. And also I would like to get a copy of the existing Chapter 91 license to verify if it's recorded or if it's valid currently. And if the commission decides to approve this project, there should be a requirement for payment of the shellfish mitigation fee based on the recommendation of the Shellfish Constable.
Okay, thank you. Raul, may I see that, the copy of that letter from the DMF?
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Drew, I have one comment. I was just looking at the plan again, saying that there's 6 rotting piles to be removed and replaced along with the cross bracing.
Right.
If they're gonna remove the 6 pilings and then could find others out there, depends on when they're working, does it make sense to put flow decking on this?
That's what I'm saying.
At this point, because a lot of that decking's gonna come out.
That it would be a good form of mitigation, even though I know it's not part of the project scope, but if you're truly looking to, you know, leave this resource area in a better situation than what currently exists, I don't see any reason why that would be an unreasonable request, at least over the portion where it spans over the salt marsh.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at 6 pilings to be replaced and.
Right.
Like
So there is an opportunity if those piles are being removed to.
Right, well, the decking has to
accommodate.
come up anyways
Right.
to do that work, so, yeah.
Well, Raul, you started this off saying that those 6 to be replaced was last year, right? So they're already replaced?
No, they've been approved to be
They've
replaced.
just been approved to be replaced?
They were kind of rolled into this application because they had received a negative determination on an original request just for those 6 piles to be.
I see, okay, okay.
Well, we didn't,
Well, it didn't
forgive
get
me,
done
we
under
didn't,
the.
we're not here, we weren't here to apply for the approval for that again. We just showed that this is something that's going to happen while we're asking to reconfigure the actual float. Yeah,
But it
we
was
weren't-
part of the project narrative is kind of like being carried over into this.
Right, it was mentioned that it was approved as an
Right, it was
RDA.
referenced in the
We're not
project
asking-
narrative.
Yeah, we're not asking for reapproval, but I will say that if the commission is inclined to require us to put in the decking to open that space up in lieu of as mitigation for the 2 extra piles to hold the float, I think that I can probably convince the applicant that that would make sense.
Yeah. I think that's
That'd be
probably.
Are you comfortable?
I'm
Like,
comfortable
you
with
think
that,
that's
yeah.
fair?
I think it's probably more of an improvement to have that through-flow decking
I think so too. and to
over the
let-
2 additional piles.
I think so too.
And so I'm clear, if we're gonna put that as a condition, just, you know, identify, it's gonna be the area between the piles that are being replaced or over the marshland? What did you decide? Because I think the pilings that are being replaced are all over the water.
Right, the marshland
Right.
is for the first 24, 25 feet of the pier.
But you're also reducing the shading impact, so I think it should span out from over the salt marsh up to where you're replacing the extent of the piles. Yeah.
Yeah, at that point, it'd probably be the whole pier at that
Right.
point.
It would be
But-
the whole pier.
It
So,
would make sense.
I mean, I can't speak for my brother, but I'm thinking he's in favor? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, he's good, okay, we can do that. I think that's a good compromise.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
So we're all set?
Yep.
Questions from the public? Hearing none, I would accept a motion.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, make a motion to close an issue for 409 Monomoskoye Road with the following conditions. Incorporate any DMF comments, submission of boat engine draft, boat size, and number of vessels to be tied up to the pier, submission of existing recorded Chapter 91 license and status, payment of shellfish mitigation fee, as noted by the shellfish warden, and then all existing decking to be changed over to flow decking,
Through flow, yeah.
flow-through decking.
Do we have to, just a quick question, do we have to, condition, or is it boilerplate, Drew, for the constable, Shellfish Constable had put in that, it be conditioned to allow for the Mashpee Shellfish Program to continue seeding and utilizing the bottom there? Do we have to add that, or is that something that you typically?
We're good with that.
I think that you guys are good with that, and we can reiterate it in
course.
the order conditions, so,
Yeah.
just so
Okay,
it's in
I was
writing.
just wondering if
Yeah.
it was normally a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And then all conditions to be met before issue of order and conditions? Yeah, sure.
Before issuing a certificate.
Certificate of compliance.
Well, the shellfish mitigation fee should be paid prior to commencement of work.
I know we have a motion, how much is that? I haven't
Right,
seen
but
that.
$60.72.
Wouldn't you want to know
How
the
much?
60.
60,
Okay.
yeah.
I think we can cover that.
The boat info, when, in the Chapter 91 info, you need to know that before issuing the order.
Yeah, I would like to
Yeah.
have
Both
that,
of those,
yeah.
Yeah.
The commission should understand that DEP has asked us to file a new application for this reconfiguration because there's only like 5 years left on the existing license. They don't want to go
Okay.
through an amendment and then
That's
have to-
fine, as long as I have that information.
Yeah,
I
just
just
as
wasn't
long
sure
as
what
you-
the
yeah.
status was of the existing
We're
license.
headed there
but-
next. We wanted to make sure that this was okay
Okay.
with you folks first before we
Okay.
file with them.
That covered it all. I'm going to second the motion.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Further discussion by commissioners.
I just have a quick question and request, and my apologies. That was a lot of conditions, and I think there was some conversation in there. Could we just restate all the conditions that were?
Sure.
Okay.
voted on? Thank you.
Incorporation of any DMF comments, submission of boat engine draft, boat size, and number of vessels to be tied up to that pier, submission of Chapter 91 license and status, payment of the shellfish mitigation fee, and what was the,
The through flow decking.
no, what else you had in the shellfish mitigation? with-
Continue shellfish seeding.
And continued shellfish seeding, and then installation of flow decking for the whole pier.
Got it, thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay, roll call vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes,
And I'm going to vote no. Based on the habitat area of particular concern, this is also a winter flounder area, and I'm not thrilled about the 4 piles. But motion carries.
Thank you very much, folks. we'll probably have that stuff to you like Monday, is that okay?
That's fine.
Maybe Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
And they'll know the time of year restrictions and stuff, because that's
Yeah,
all
that'll be-
DFF stuff.
That'll be incorporated.
Okay, we
As
covered
Steve
all
said,
that.
all their comments will be incorporated as a condition.
Okay.
Now calling the 6:39 hearing for 75 Papaneset Island Road, Matthew David Hudson and Carol Marie Hudson. Proposed construction of additions to a single-family dwelling, including a patio with a second-level deck, access stairs, and rinse station. Representative is Cape and Islands Engineering. This is a notice of intent, DEP file number 433306. Good evening.
Good evening, Mark Dibb, for the record, for the applicant at 75 Papaneset Island Road, for Matthew Hudson. We have filed a notice of intent application for an existing house. First, just go through the resource areas on the property. It is an existing dwelling. There is Papaneset Island Road and Taffrail Way to the kind of all wraps around from the north to the south. And then on the west is Papaneset Creek, which currently has an existing pier ramp and float and revetment resource areas out in the water, land under ocean, land containing shellfish, as well as the coastal bank at the top of that structure. Then from there, it's triggering a 75-foot buffer. That's the green arc that runs through the house, as well as a 150-foot buffer. The proposal is basically three things. The brown rectangle on the side of the house that you see there is a set of stairs off an existing deck. It's kind of a odd house a little bit that there is a deck along the back of that house that does not have a stairwell access. So it's a means of just providing a stair off there versus having to go back through the house and out. And then the other rectangle that's right below the word deck is an expansion of the deck and a creation of a screened-in porch for that area. And one thing that's happening at the property is there's a number of roof lines that are causing basically corrosion and failure of that existing deck and some of the things associated with the dwelling itself. So part of that covered screened porch is to remedy some of the roof lines and things that are going on historically with the house. And then the last part of the project is the patio that's proposed out in the back. On the plan, we did provide a mitigation table, as well as some mitigation for the project that is triggered by that mitigation or by the work. So that's what's proposed. We did receive some comments from Drew. One was related to that mitigation. There's an existing gravel path that runs through the one green area. And you'll see on the table, you'll see like in the, this is your buffer strip table. In the 10 to 15 area, you'll see a -25. That's the area of that path that's being removed. And in the table, then it was computed with some credit, essentially, for that move. But we've been asked to revisit that and take a look at the way the mitigation was calculated for this project by Drew. We felt that there's definitely a reduction of gravel, but then to take the credit at the mitigation amount, so 25 times 4.5, was not necessarily the intention of the table. So we do plan on looking at that mitigation. As well, there's 2 trees being removed, proposed to be removed. One is in the footprint of the patio, a 24-inch oak tree that's both in the footprint of the patio as well. There's branches overhanging the existing dwelling. As well, there's an 18-inch pine Drew thought maybe, and we were just proposing to replace the trees with those two trees with two trees. We understand a one-to-one mitigation on just the tree itself may not be sufficient, so we plan to take a look at that and get some more input on that from the commission as well. He believes that the work shown does need a waiver from Section 25, and we had not provided that yet, along with the requirements within that waiver that we are familiar with. So I do plan to, after taking some input from the commission, I do plan to request a continuance for this project. I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission has at this time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, questions that you may have?
I have a question. Does the square footage of the patio, was that counted for towards mitigation or no?
It's counted in proposed development. So like in the 40 to 45, you'll see an increase of 168, 42, 50. It's counted as needing to be mitigated for, if that's your question.
Yeah, I was asking if the square footage of mitigation is taking into account the patio too?
Yes.
Okay.
All set.
I think so. I might ask more, but I think so.
Mark, how will the stormwater be taken care of from the patio, if that's a bluestone patio?
Right.
We did not propose any stormwater management. However, we could provide an adequate sized leaching facility to capture that. Probably a drain right in the middle and just with a very slight pitch to that.
Yeah,
But we
that
could
sounds
provide
good, yeah.
I have a follow-up question, Mark. I know in the project narrative, it talks about a rinse station, but I don't see that called out on the plan. Is it in that corner of the patio?
Yeah, you'll see there's a little walkway with
Yeah.
a arc.
Okay.
It should be labeled, but that's what that is right there.
Okay.
That
And where does that drain to?
It wouldn't, right, it would not be tied to anything, but we could tie that to the same leaching if requested.
It should be tied into something.
Yeah, that would be fine, we could do that.
Yeah, if you're gonna put leaching underneath the patio, tie it right in for
Right.
that.
Okay. Other questions?
I was just going to ask your question.
You're gonna beat you to it, I guess. Sarah?
I have a couple questions. Yeah, thanks, Paul. Hello again, Mark. Forgive me if this is on the plan. I don't have the benefit of that giant sheet of paper today. Are the stairs going to be hardscaped or just wooden stairs, wooden decking?
There'll be
Stairwell?
wooden decking.
Okay, great. And then I know you had mentioned these two pretty good-sized trees that are going to be taken out, and the revisions coming back are going to have kind of a greater than one-to-one replant for those trees. But I didn't see a planting plan or a landscape plan. Is that part of what you are going to be preparing for the next time we see you on this one?
Correct.
Okay, great. That's all I have. Thank you.
I'm just curious, looking at the calculations, if the 581 proposed development square feet, if that should be at a 2-to-1 because it's in the flood zone for mitigation, rather than subject to the buffer
Stepping it back.
steps, yeah.
I would tend to agree.
Wasn't the chart, I think the chart was revised to go no lower than 2-to-1. That would be the minimum, but the
two.
mitigation is supposed to increase the closer you are to the resource area, and then it decreases, but no lower than 2 to 1 at an absolute minimum. That way, this mitigation table meets that 2 to 1 threshold under the flood zone regulation.
So it would be more than this, though, right?
It's gonna have to be more, because he has to adjust the numbers based on some of the
Okay.
credit they were taking for the pathway.
Yeah.
And that needs to be mitigated for. There's some other issues that we need to have a discussion on, but the chart doesn't really,
Okay.
it's not,
I
it's
just
not
wa-
calculated the way it was intended. It
Yeah,
should
I
be.
was struggling looking at it, and
Yeah.
math isn't my forte, but,
Mine either.
okay.
Yeah.
I do think it's a
Just
little off.
times 2, it shouldn't be that hard.
It shouldn't, but if we are continuing, that would just be something to take into account.
And if you take 581 times 2, you're up around 1,100, and we're proposing 800, but you'll
Okay.
see higher up in the table on the required, you'll see rather large negative numbers. That's the credit that I talked about early on that we're going to revisit.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what needs to be adjusted.
Yeah, their number is going to come out to about 1,230.
Okay.
Somewhere's around there is what I have. That's just the positive numbers, I guess I'll say, added up.
That's fine.
So. On top of that, I just got a quick question. For the mitigation right here, was there a reason it's not going up to the revetment wall? And there's just going to be a green grass strip in between the mitigation and the wall?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Our surveyors had identified that as the break between the grass and the natural area. If I have to revisit that just to double check,
Yeah,
that's why I believe that area is natural.
I would recommend just double checking, because from what I saw when I was on site was a bush that was just not happy, basically what it comes down to. And the rest was just, it seemed to be grass, so I would just revisit that. I think the commission would appreciate having mitigation closest to the wetland area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that on both sides of the float?
There was on both sides, but on this side down here, that was pretty vegetated with trees. So there was an opportunity for that, but it didn't seem like that was a disturbed area. It's just, is a lot of shade, a
Yeah,
lot of shade.
yeah.
If I could just make an additional recommendation, I think it's clearer for the commission, and when your plans always show, highlighted areas of mitigation, and then you look at a side note and it details the species. It would be good just to have a separate mitigation plan, just dedicated to mitigation details only, so we can get a better idea of, what's being proposed without kind of cross-referencing plan notes to highlighted areas. Let's just have a separate mitigation plan dedicated to those details only. Some of the plans we see, from landscape architects show like symbols in an area, so you can see the numbers and just greater detail, so they can get a better idea of what to expect from mitigation. Just from a visual standpoint, I think it just would be helpful.
Yep. We also have questions, comments?
Yeah.
Anyone from the public, quick question? Guess not. Okay, so,
You want to reiterate what there were a couple of comments, just so you may have already made note of these, but the rinse station needs details as where that will be draining to.
right.
And details of stormwater runoff from the patio. Steve had mentioned that as well. Just want to make sure you got those details.
And just for clarification, the plans do say bluestone steps and landings. I think that was Sarah's question. Wasn't it, Sarah, about the steps being wood or stone?
Yes.
And I think the answer was wood.
Those are existing out of an actual door of the house.
Oh, they're there?
Yes.
Okay.
Underneath.
Just a quick question, just on this, where the stairs are going, is that retainment wall going to stay? It's like maybe 18 inches, if that. Is that going to stay, or is that just going to be taken out so you can have the stairs flush with the grade to the ground?
They're going to be coming out.
It's like a
I
flower
can
bed.
reve that.
You can review it, all right,
I
that'd be
believe
great.
it's going to work around that wall.
Okay,
But-
no,
but
either way, it wouldn't matter. If the wall can come out, that'd be fantastic, but I understand taking out is going to create disturbance. So I didn't know if the stairs were going to go on top of it or whatnot. Right now, it's just a flower bed, a planting bed, so.
Okay. So we're looking at a date and a time.
I'm hoping August 22nd? That would give
Yes,
you
I should be
till
able to resubmit by next Friday.
Next
yes,
Friday?
that'd be
Okay.
fine.
So 6:42 on August 22nd.
Okay,
6:42.
I'll say so moved.
And I'll second.
8:22, 6:42. Steve and Alex. Okay, motion made and seconded for the continuance. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
We're on a roll. Let's keep it going.
Now calling the 6:42 hearing for 11 Waterline Drive North, Craig and Mary Beth Chaffee. Proposed removal of existing deck, construction and maintenance of porch, second-story balcony and addition, Title V IA microfast system, associated clearing, grading, landscape, and utilities. Representative, Cape and Islands Engineering. This is continued from 6/27 and 7/25. This is an RDA. Good evening again, 3 times.
Hi again, Mark Dibb with Cape and Islands Engineering. So yes, we did present this RDA that night. I did resubmit a July 18th letter. I have 4 bullet points I'd like to go through to respond to questions that happened at the hearing. The question was asked about the extent of work on the house and where the 2 bedrooms are being added. I think the extent of work question was related to this house is in the floodplain. Would it be completely rebuilt? Would it be the work is intended to be less than 50% of the value of the house. So only these areas being identified as being worked on are part of the project. So, you know, it will not be a raise and replace by any extent. And then the 2 bedrooms that were being added are being added above basically where it says proposed addition on the deck, but where the actual wording is a second floor addition above the garage, just within that footprint. So that is where those are being added. Just to further clarify, the proposed second floor balcony over existing deck and proposed addition on deck are deck-like structures at the location of an existing first floor deck. This vertical construction is on existing posts, and that will not have any impact to the floodplain. So that's for the addition called the second floor balcony over existing deck. And then the expanded porch on the front, again, is going to be built on posts and should also not affect the floodplain at all on that. And there was just a question on the use of going from 3 to 5 bedrooms. These rooms technically qualify as bedrooms. However, they are solely going to be used as remote home offices for the 2 owners of the property. We just felt it was information that we could provide. They're definitely intended to be home office space, remote space. And lastly, regarding the sewer system, the septic system, we have proposed a 5-bedroom septic system. However, we do understand that a determination was made that since it is in one of the future phases of the sewer system, phase 5, I believe, per the wording of the Chapter 108 regulation, it says any dwellings that have sewer available or can be in the future should abide by that flow neutral bylaw. So per the written regulations, this is mapped in a future sewer location. So we do believe that and again, this is new information from when I wrote bullet 4. So we do believe that it does apply the flow neutral bylaw, and we do intend to either change the design as required by the Board of Health for the property. We could, as of right now, we plan to seek a variance, but either way, again, as we outlined before, we're not even the size of the current system does not need to remove any trees, and that is under the jurisdiction of the Board of Health. So we respectfully ask that just a single condition that the project meets the Board of Health requirements. Whether it's a 3-bedroom or 5-bedroom system, the impacts of that installation on the property, on the environment, does not change. So if we could, we'd like to have that as a condition versus not. But that's what we've provided, and I'd be happy to answer any further questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions from commissioners?
Mark, can you just say it again? What is it that you're saying you would want us to have as a condition?
I mean, it really doesn't need it. I mean, if we have approval from you guys and then we go to the health department or even the board and cannot get a variance or cannot just be approved, it will get scaled back to a lesser design on the house, a lesser septic design flow.
Right.
Okay. The project will die if we don't meet the Board of Health regulations.
Okay. And then I just have a question. Where in this process would it trip? I know Mark was just saying that the house will be less than 50%. The work on the house will be less than 50% of the value of the house, but what part in the process, in the permitting process, would that get flagged?
When they go to ZBA, I would assume, right? Is that
The 50% thing actually gets flagged by the building commissioner
Right.
at building permit time. It's
we
not
get-
a job he likes to do, is analyze, the value of these houses, but it's 100% the intention of this project to come in under that threshold.
Okay, so there,
requires our sign off as Conservation Department on a building permit request through the Permit-I software that we use, so.
right, I just
that's
wasn't
what-
sure if at some point, where in the line, so we could potentially approve this and just say if at any point it trips the 50% thing, then you're coming back in front of us.
Yeah, exactly,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Mark, did you submit the nitrogen loading calcs for the spaces, proposed spaces and existing spaces?
Yes, they should have been submitted.
Yeah, that's in the packet, I believe, for 5 bedrooms, right?
Correct. Yes, 3, the existing with 3 without an IA and versus proposed with 5 and
Okay,
IA.
I don't have it.
No, I thought I saw.
No, as long as it means, you guys looked at it, right?
We
So
have,
that calculation includes the 2 additional bedrooms? I didn't think it did.
I believe it did.
Yeah, it
Does?
should. yeah.
Okay. This is.
It's in the original packet.
Yeah, this is 5
Yeah,
bedrooms
that's-
on the top.
Sorry,
At the
my
top,
mistake then.
That
Okay.
39,000.
Yeah. I didn't have the calcs, so that's.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
That was my mistake.
Thanks.
Other questions?
I have a question, Paul. Hello again, Mike. I don't know if this is a question for you or for the other commissioners, but I'm really struggling to understand why this is not just coming through to us as an NOI, and I think I would feel a lot more comfortable even deliberating about the project if we had information from the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Board of Health first to consider. I'm not comfortable conditioning that. So I'll put that on the table.
Okay. Sarah, I felt the same way when I first looked at this project. There's an awful lot going on, but if you just look at the excavation alone for the septic, it's called out on the plan at 12 by 56 with an additional 5 feet on each dimension to make sure that there's no organic materials in the sand. So it really comes out to 22 by 66. That would be the hole in the ground. And then you have the tank as well. I mean, it's a fairly large excavated area. And it's in a resource area that's called out in 1002. And when you look at determination of applicability, it clearly says under 1005B2 that if it's an area, a resource area in 1002, you must find that 130, 140 applies, that it would be a positive determination. If it was just slightly in a buffer zone situation and it was just replacing an existing tank or something like that, we've had some of those in the past, I could see it as an RDA. And then I see that catch basin that's sitting right there in the road, and I know there's talk about grading and there'll be sand that's piled up, and there's a lot going on here. So I'm not comfortable with this as an RDA either. Anyone else? Mark, are you asking for a question?
Yeah, I'd like to respond.
Sure.
Couple things. The first being the additional 5 feet of removal is when that's required. You'll see the top of the system is at elevation 6.38, which would be below the sandy loam layer. So that additional 5 feet all the way around is not required for this installation. And I mean, that would be temporary disturbance. And you know, the two additions have no impact on the flood zone. I mean, it's temporary in nature. If we were to be required to do an NOI, it would be the same proposal. And I don't know what any conditions could be related to that. One thing, when the question of 5 bedrooms came up recently, I did talk to the client. I do have some architectural plans here that show those offices modified to have cased openings. And basically, I do have the client in agreement if it was, if we had to continue to have only a 3-bedroom house. The Board of Health would consider this house, I could pass this around, that it would be a 3-bedroom house. And I do have a revised plan that shows a 3-bedroom design flow. If the board's interested in that, we could condition it based on that. But this is temporary disturbance. There is no, it will not, the grade is not being altered by the system. There is enough grade there, or it's within a foot of alteration. Whether it's an RDA or an NOI, I don't believe there's really any necessary conditions for this project.
So Mark, you're saying that if you change those 2 rooms with cased open as not bedrooms, you wouldn't need to put in a new septic system?
We would need to put in the IA system, and based on knowledge of what we have, the existing leach field could be deeper than what we're proposing it at, so it could be, much closer to groundwater. So we'd prefer to put in a new leach field, even if it was a 3-bedroom
Okay.
system.
All right. Because going back to your point, Paul, is, I look at that and I understand what you and Sarah are saying about an NOI versus an RDA. But I look at the property, it's all disturbed area, lawn, shrubs. Then you have 2 roads between the property
Right.
and other properties before you even get to flood zone. I understand the 75 and 150-foot buffers to coastal bank, but there's so much disturbed area and roadways and buildings between the 2. I don't see why an NOI would,
Like what the difference would be.
yeah, it just,
Yeah.
if this was right on the water, I would agree with you, but, I just don't see it. I think an IDA for this would be fine, based on the roadways and other structures between the wetlands. And then the area where the septic system is already disturbed, it's open grass area right now, so it'd just be dug in a short period of time and put back in. I don't think it would be, if the excavation would probably within a week's time, I would say.
Days, yeah.
Yeah.
For the sake of moving forward, would you, Sarah and Paul, feel comfortable if it went through ZBA and then we saw it again? Like if we continued until after ZBA hears it, so that any of those concerns can be wrapped into this, so we have a better understanding?
There are a lot of unknowns.
Right.
There's talk of changing this or going back to 3 bedrooms or,
Well, if you go back to 3 bedrooms, septic system,
it's still,
based on what Mark said, it's still gonna be
he
replaced.
still wants to open it up,
Right. So whether it's 3 bedrooms, 5 bedrooms, that doesn't matter.
yeah.
Yeah.
I can give an answer on the ZBA. We didn't take this particular project to ZBA, but we took another current open project we were discussing informally to ZBA, and they said in no way will they make a determination on a project without your determination. So it's, in my opinion, it's not an option to do that. Again, just want to reiterate that there's essentially no impact to the floodplain on this project.
One thing I could suggest is that it's not a common practice of the commission, nor should it be, in general, but you can condition RDAs, you can even require them to be recorded at the Registry of Deeds. If you wanted to implement erosion control, for instance, work limit, conditions that if anything gets disturbed as far as nearby trees, root systems from the excavation, you can have a condition of mitigation. And then for, restoring the area, you can have a condition that it meets our lawn standards or even require microclover as opposed to any sort of rye fescue mix. So those are things that you can condition. It's one way or the other. You can have them come back with a notice of intent, which is a lot more paperwork, understandably, with those same conditions, or you can condition an RDA and require it to be recorded. It's either way, the conditions will have to be met. So just throwing that out there as an option.
Shoot,
Well,
I
the
was trying to
condi-
find some middle ground.
Yeah, those are the kinds of conditions that I was thinking. I know when it was presented the last time, they were going to try to protect the trees. In fact, the plan says protect the trees. But those trees are pretty close. When you start digging into all those roots,
Yeah.
you can have some real issues going on. And then it's, restoring the whole area. If we just say negative determination and do very little conditioning, it's a green light. They can just do what they want to do. I would feel comfortable if we could throw a full set of conditions, much like we would have
Okay.
with an NOI.
I think that's fair, given that they're just gonna come back and present the whole same thing again if it's an NOI. Like, it's not gonna be that different, and as an NOI, what they're proposing to us.
I mean, it is more kind of a, from an enforcement standpoint, to have it issued as an order of conditions and recorded like your typical,
Yeah.
issuance from an NOI, a decision from an NOI. So I understand that,
But you said this would be recorded as well.
Record
you
this.
can make it a condition to have it recorded,
Have it
therefore those
recorded.
conditions will be binding,
Okay, so
That's
we
what
can,
I would-
despite the mechanism,
For me to vote for that, that's what I would want to see.
Yeah, then I would make that part of the motion if that's what you're comfortable with. Yeah. It's not common practice, but
Right.
Yeah.
This is not a common
it's
job.
another,
okay, so the conditions we would place, can we just list them all again so that we have this to
Do you
go?
want me to make a motion?
And we can
condition?
muddle through it, sure.
Okay. We else, you need any public comment or anything
Yeah,
else?
let's go to public comment before we go to motion. Unless, Drew, there's other things you want to add?
Nope.
No.
nothing else, no.
No other commissioners? Was that, Sarah, no other questions from you? Questions from the public? I see none. Okay. So I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, make a motion for a negative determination for 11 Waterline Drive North with the following conditions: that the RDA to be recorded with a planting plan. I think, right, we were talking about planting plan for
For lawn
grass and
standards.
trees.
Microclover.
Microclover for the lawn, and just a condition that if there's any impact to existing trees, that the commission reserves the right to require mitigation, just to kind of have it an umbrella, rather than a mitigation plan, because we don't know if there's going to be
Right.
impacts. It's in the event of impacts that there be a requirement, the commission would require some form of mitigation in the event that that happens. That
Okay.
there's- Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
And then
Erosion control was.
Erosion control.
erosion control.
Yeah.
Above and beyond what is shown in the plan, or what?
I would just say,
There
like,
wasn't
if
much in the
anything, if
plan.
anything happens with the catch basin, that they clean out the catch basin.
Yeah, the catch basin should be protected, actually. I
Right.
think
Should
that,
be.
yeah.
Do you
yeah.
know where that leads to?
I'm not sure. We can find out.
No, it's right there. I mean, it's
Yeah.
Oh, it just goes to,
down
Leaching.
gradient of where they're digging.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
And did you get recorded at the Barnstable County of Deeds?
Yeah, I said that.
You
That was
did,
the first
okay.
thing I said.
Making sure.
Yep.
And then if, obviously, I don't know if it needs to be a condition or
Changes.
not, but that if it's at any point determined to be over 50%, it needs to come back.
Yeah, that's something we can make
Yeah,
sure
yeah.
of in-house through the communication with other departments.
Okay.
Yeah. And that would also be based if they want to come back at that point. I know there's been one project so far, they get the 50% rule, and they were like, I'm out, and they just, that's it.
Yeah, they did.
So,
Okay.
And
Mike?
now that we know that flow neutral is applicable to this, not that it's under our jurisdiction, but the representative did say that they have to go before the BOH for a variance, so that should be also considered. I mean, if there's no variance, then none of this is going to work.
Right.
So we
And
did-
as long as it has a variance from Board of Health.
yeah, I'll put that as a condition.
so Board of Health variance
And
must be
Board of Health
achieved.
Variance.
Okay.
And then the recommendation is to have microclover lawn be restored over the excavated area when it gets restored. That
Okay,
it'd
and
be
a
a
microclover
microclover lawn
lawn.
mix, which is available in sod. We know that locally, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second. Thanks.
We muddled through it.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, motion made and seconded. A lot of conditions on an RDA.
It is.
Any further discussion on the motion? Sarah? Nothing further?
Only just to say, this is a big project. It's very close to the water. I would like to see it go through the formal NOI process. So,
Okay. Nothing else? Okay, I'll take a vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Sarah?
no.
And I'll vote yes because of the conditions. They would be identical to what we would get in a notice of intent. Okay, stay in touch.
Thank you.
We did it. We didn't continue something. I'm proud of us.
But it might come back.
It might.
Now calling the 6:45 hearing for 2 Ned Bessie Road, Peter W. Salinas, trustee, Salinas Living Trust. Proposed raise and replace of a single-family dwelling. Representative is Meyer and Sons Incorporated. This is a notice of intent, DEP file number 433307. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Darren Meyer, representing Peter, the owner of the property. This is Peter.
Peter Selenius, owner of 2 Ned Bessie Road.
The project before you is for a notice of intent. The project is a proposal to raise and replace the existing dwelling with a new dwelling. The existing dwelling is a 3-bedroom dwelling that is in a little bit of disrepair. The foundation is in a compromised condition, so the proposal is to raise that structure, remove it, and then replace it with a new concrete foundation dwelling. The proposal is to access the property from Ned Bessie through the gravel driveway across the property, remove the existing structure, and prepare the site for construction, foundation, and whatnot. The proposed construction is a smaller footprint than what exists now. The proposal is to pull it back from the pond an additional 6 feet or so. The subject property is on Mashpee Pond. The existing dwelling is within the limits of an inland bank. The proposed dwelling, as I said, will be pulled back a little bit from where the existing dwelling is. And the proposal is to connect to the existing septic system. That system was put in 2021. We've spoken with the Board of Health, talked to them about the need to address their concerns, and we were told that since the system was newly installed in phase 2 of the sewer connection, if we agree to connect to the sewer when that's available, and if we don't touch the existing system as it sits on the ground, we shouldn't have a problem on their end. We also are within the jurisdiction of the National Heritage Endangered Species Program, both with the rare wildlife and rare species habitat areas. We've filed an application with that office. Haven't heard any feedback yet from them. In addition to the dwelling, we will be removing rock wall and stone steps and replacing that with a concrete wall, similar size and height, to retain that portion of the inland bank. Also proposing to remove an existing decking structure and replacing that with a 2-tier decking structure that is of smaller footprint. The proposal is actually 2% smaller in coverage than what exists there now. We have proposed to mitigate some areas of disturbance where the northerly side where the existing house is removed will not be covered with the new house. We'll restore that, plant some microclover lawn areas across the front of the house, pond side. We have a couple of other planting areas around to mitigate any disturbed areas that will be created during construction. And I believe that addresses all concerns. We don't feel that this project creates any adverse impact. It actually is an improvement because of the size and the mitigation that we've offered. Happy to answer any questions. I'm not sure if Peter would like to make any additional comments.
Just that as Darren alluded to, we get the 2% reduction in lot coverage by reducing the footprint of the proposed house 22% from the existing house. The nice thing about that is, it gives us an opportunity in the areas covered by the existing house to do our, do our planting mitigations there. We feel that by reducing there's benefit to reducing the size of it by bringing it back 6 to 8 feet from the shore of Mashpee Pond, as well as increasing the setbacks both to the north and south, and in an effort to reduce the amount of soil that needs to be disturbed on the east-facing side. The current plan is to put the proposed side of the house on the same plane, basically in the same place as the existing house. So we feel like by putting the proposed house really essentially within the footprint of the existing house, we're minimizing disturbance as much as possible, short of not doing anything.
Okay, thank you. Questions from commissioners?
I have one question.
Sandy?
I believe from reading the narrative that you're removing 2 beech trees and 1 oak tree and 1 elm tree?
Right, if we go back to the site plan, there's 3 trees across the bottom of the lot, right at the top of the inland bank, and then there's the oak tree to the north by the septic system. The proposal there is, because they're in rough shape, the proposal there was to cut them to the stump, but not disturb any of the roots structure, because they are in an area that could be sensitive to holding that banking together. So the plan is just to cut it because they're not in good shape and they're kind of a hazard, and just leaving the stump and the root structures in place.
And just to enhance this a little bit further as well, we are actually working with Bartlett on the southernmost beech tree, which is closest to the southeast corner of the house. We're actually going to make an attempt to leave a lot of the bottom branch structure. That's probably not the right terminology, but there's a lot of the bottom branch structure, and that we're hoping that some treatment that Bartlett will provide will be able to preserve that portion of the tree alive. The leaders that are going up and sort of over the existing house right now are in bad shape and are suffering from the beech tree disease, and I'm sure you're all familiar with. I'm not expert on it, except to say that it's really doing a job on all the beech trees around Mashpee and Wakeby Pond, and it's really horrific to see. But we are working with them to try to save that tree, as well as another one that's not shown on the plan because it is not affected at all by this plan. But we're going to spend some money to try to preserve that as well as all the beech saplings that run along sort of the south border of the property. There are a number of them that are growing up there, and we are going to, sort of fingers crossed, and hope that we're able to preserve those as well. The house is actually going to be a modular home. It's going to be built in New York State, and it will be delivered and set up in one day on the property. We feel that that's a significant value in terms of environmental impact. I'm sure you're all familiar with, construction sites where there's pieces of Tyvek blowing around and insulation blowing around and months of work. And by going this modular approach, we'll do the demolition, hopefully, of the existing home, put the foundation in one day. The home will be installed, and the benefit, in addition to the less mess, is much less construction presence on site, shorter construction, and a significant reduction in the amount of debris from construction that will need to be disposed of locally, as you would expect in a normal stick-built house. And so that's another element of the proposal as well.
Quick question on the elm and the oak. Did the arborist inspect those and have an assessment of why they're proposed to be removed?
So the need to remove one or both of them will be related to the need to utilize a crane to lift the proposed new house into place. There is, obviously you've all, seen cranes and they need a certain amount of room and picking up the house in 4 pieces is a, big chunk of house that's gonna swing. So if we don't need to remove them both, and trimming is just a possibility, we would like to do that. I hate cutting down any trees, frankly. But I would hate it more for our house to end up in the lake at some point in time. That would make me feel a little bit worse and be, I think, a much worse situation. So that seems like a reasonable trade-off, and we feel like with the revegetation plan, we're certainly happy to make up for any trees that we cut down. And as I said, we are working hard to preserve what we have, including the beech trees that are currently diseased.
Are you, according to this little, I think this is sort of like your landscaping plan that's on this?
Oh, yeah, sure.
You're going to replace, it says a dogwood tree and, I think that's-
Yeah, there, I don't know if you can display the slide that shows the revegetation plan that you're referring to, but it's the same plan. Yeah, we're not gonna plant beech trees,
Right.
Obviously, because of the, I wish we could.
Right.
I hung a swing off a beech tree in the yard when I was a kid, and I'd love to get that back, but it is not coming back. So the current plan is shows a couple of trees along that area near where those 2 beech trees are as part of that revegetation plan. As I said, we're hoping to preserve the southernmost beech tree, at least much of the lower spread of it, as well as about 8 saplings that are growing in that area, beech saplings that range in size from, I don't know, maybe this big to about that big around. So we're hoping that those grow in as well. And certainly, fingers crossed in that regard.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have a question, or maybe more questions for Drew and Daniel, but do you feel with what they're presenting here, it leaves the property in better condition than what currently sits there now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, based on the fact that you have an existing structure in the middle of a resource area that's, protected under the act, that being inland bank, I think that based on what's presented and what you can see on the plans, they're trying to minimize disturbance to the greatest extent possible. And keep in mind, too, that Natural Heritage has jurisdiction over a portion of this lot, and they haven't submitted their comment letter. I would anticipate, there's another project that I actually referenced for the applicant at 104 Lakewood, not too far from this same setting, inland bank, bordering Mashpee Wakeby Pond, where Natural Heritage came in and had a pretty substantial mitigation plan based on, their selection of native species. So you could see some pretty radical changes to the mitigation based on Natural Heritage feedback. But overall, considering they're bringing in a modular home to reduce construction impact to the bank, making it smaller overall than the existing structure, everything about this is really, kind of measures to reduce impact to the greatest extent possible.
If I may add to my earlier comment as well, on the lakeside bank, we are not going to do any tree removal, any branches that would be removed in that area. This is on the western facing side of this plan facing the lake. Any branches that we cut would only be those few that might interfere with the house as it's being placed. We're not trying to increase our views. We're not doing anything to destabilize the bank. And in fact, we have been, fighting that forever. Decades ago, I, did plantings to help stabilize the plant that were all approved and permitted, and we continue to think that's pretty important.
And I'll touch on that, Rich, as well. I do think this project is leaving it in a better situation. Currently, right now, we're the micro clover lawn area of the strip, really, in front of the house. That is being proposed. In that section right now, I didn't get a picture of it, but there's currently a concrete walkway, I think you'd call it.
Yeah, partial concrete walkway.
Yeah, a concrete walkway.
And some
that
moss.
is at this angle on the bank. So everything under it's getting underpitted. It's just filtering into the bank, and the concrete's actually collapsing, and that is attached to the foundation of the house. So I think that would leave this in a better position, as well as the house is literally in the bank. It's not on top of it or anything. It is in the bank. So yes, I think this will definitely enhance the area, as well as he stated, he wants to protect as many trees as possible. So I can tell you this lot is quite vegetated from what I have seen there. So you can see this picture here. you literally walk down a good 6 feet to get onto this deck from the actual landing, from the driveway. So, yeah, I think it'll definitely be a better position, especially since Drew said it's gonna be a smaller square foot, and it's gonna be, 5 feet further inland. So I think that would be great for this, for situation it's in.
I have a couple technical questions for you guys. So the first one is the septic system H10 or H20 loaded?
It's H10, the tank is.
Okay, so how are you going to get equipment over it?
They're gonna have to be careful. I mean, road plates is really what they're gonna have to do.
Okay. And that wasn't mentioned in the narrative at all, so.
Right, yeah. That's a good point. They're gonna have to do something to shore up that tank when they come in with the heavy trucks.
Yeah, and the, part of the leaching field too, right? So,
Yeah.
SAS, yeah, okay. Second question is the, I've seen it's a two-tiered deck, correct?
Yes, one at the lower level of the property, which would be the sub, level at the basement, which is a finished lower level, and then first floor deck.
Okay, so
second
what's
floor.
gonna be underneath the deck? There's no description of what material is gonna be underneath there.
It's, at this point, was just going to be native material with the decking allowing water to pass through.
So you're saying it's gonna be stone, or?
We can put stone, but I think at this point, it was just gonna be native material, similar to what's there now, but.
The current plan would be that in the, with the two decks, if you vision one on top of the other, the lower
Right.
one a little bit smaller, that it would be, sort of normal decking material, and that the top deck would have drainage that would go into the same drainage
So you
as
got
as the house.
an upper deck and a lower deck.
Well, yeah, the intent is the lower deck will be basically right out the walkout level of the
Right,
house.
but is it gonna be wood frame? Is it gonna be a patio? Is it gonna be stone? What's the material gonna be there?
It has not been finally engineered. Part of the process before I get my final engineering done and everything is getting through this process. If there's a specific requirement, we would certainly be interested in meeting that. Currently, envisioning a deck, like a wood deck or a AZEC type.
Right, so that's
Composite.
having a structure
Yes,
there.
that's-
Yeah, it's not hardscape.
Because one of the concern is this deck structure, both upper and lower, are closer to the resource area than the existing deck. Can you move that back?
So they currently.
To match up?
The decks currently are, but overall, the whole footprint of the house and deck is significantly further back than existing. Moving the deck back, part of it would be just evaluating where sort of that, there's a retaining wall there to the southeast portion of it. It would be, something that, we're certainly, willing to look at, to move it as far back as the, move it several feet back would require at least a partial sort of redesign of that end of the house at that level. Actually, it would bring us a little bit, I think, closer to the lot line where we're currently increasing setbacks on that side from what is current, so
Right, but it's not-
reduce the increase of that.
Yeah, because I'm looking at this retaining wall, this new retaining wall that's going there to hold everything back. Then you have a set of stairs going to a platform, to me, would need 2 posts underneath it. So if you're saying that you're gonna have, 3 or 4 or 5 posts underneath the deck, then you're gonna need 2 more at that landing, and you're gap spanning from a retaining wall up 3 feet to a distance to that deck. If that deck goes back towards the retaining wall, then it's away from the resource area, and then it's closer to the retaining wall, so less structure there.
Sure.
And then the other thing I'm looking at is, if you have elevations 73.9 for the first floor, so you say the deck is 73.4, and then you look at the grade at the, closest to the lake, it's elevation 62. So that's, a 10-foot height difference there, and then you have probably 65 at the front end of the deck. So, the grade's dropping off. So now, if you're going to say you're going to have a structure underneath, there's a 3-foot height difference from the front of the deck to the rear of the deck.
Okay,
So-
sure. So just to understand what you're asking, you're talking about the southwest corner of the deck would
Yeah.
be, would be, is,
Yeah,
would be
so-
higher because the ground pitches off there.
Yeah, pitches
Yeah.
off there, so, you know, someone's saying, okay, if you're gonna have a structure, now you're gonna need more footings, and then, you know, with the sharp grade, I don't see how diamond piers are gonna work there. Diamond piers for an elevated deck with that grade does not work,
On the weight? Yeah.
technically,
Okay.
yeah. So I think we need more information on the deck, or can you move it back and things like that, and then, you know, the retaining wall is actually going down that steep slope. Do you need the retaining wall to go all the way down that steep slope?
Well, that grade there is, it's in the same, roughly the same spot as what's there now.
Okay,
So it's mimicking what's there now. We're just pulling out the old rock concrete structure and replacing it with a newer wall. But it's in the similar location as what's there.
Okay.
That's why we did it that way.
and then, just in your demolition, you mentioned about the straw wattle silt fence being installed staked every 5 feet. That's a long distance with that steep slope. I would go for every 2 feet to hold that in place, you know. Those things can blow out in 5 feet. And then, where are the silt fence going, at the work limit?
Yeah, at the proposed work limit, we're gonna wrap it all the way around.
Okay, that wasn't really noted on the plan where
Okay. Well,
everything's going.
Could
I assume
show
that,
the
but,
blue dashed line as the work limit on the other plan?
Could you,
Dan?
yeah, could you pull that other one up? I think it shows.
So that blue dashed line is
Yeah.
identified as the work limit?
right,
Yeah.
so it didn't really say where I assume it was going there, but it really wasn't clear, so.
But it says proposed work limit in a couple of different places along the blue dash line, on the north side and the south side, where it wraps around the deck. You can see proposed work limit
Yep.
in a couple of different areas.
But is that where
Yeah, work limit is where the
the hay bales?
hay bales and,
Okay.
yeah, one and the same.
So, that's just my concern on a technical level on the construction of it, those issues where, you know, what's underneath the deck. You know, you got grade changes from the front of the deck to the back of the deck. Can the deck be moved back? And then protection of the septic system.
Yeah, so we want to keep the existing grade, so in order to do that, obviously, one end of the deck, is higher, the ground is different height at one end or one side than the other.
Okay. Any other questions? Sarah, any questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. Hi, Darren. Hi, Peter.
Hi.
I first wanted to just note that I really appreciated the narrative in the packet that talks about the work and what's happening. It's really clear there's some health and safety concerns, and it's really clear that you care a lot about the area and protecting it. And so just kind of thinking about the fact that this house is right on Mashpee Pond, thinking about what we're seeing in terms of water quality. I wondered if there was any thought given to any kind of alternative waste management systems, like urine diversion or composting toilets. And I know that the septic system is relatively new, but the calculations are a little higher than what I would have expected to see, especially for something directly on the water. So I don't know much about septic systems, just seeing the calculation sheets from incoming applications. But is this an IA system? Is this an updated denitrifying
No,
septic system, or?
it's a conventional Title V system.
I see.
There is some thought to nitrogen treatment, but given the fact that the system's so new and the fact that the sewer Phase 2 is imminent, it just wasn't given much more thought than that, because the expense would be short-term or short-lived, and it didn't seem justified. But if it weren't proposed to have sewer, then that would be a whole nother situation. So
Fair
that's, in a long answer to a easy question, but the short answer is no. We hadn't proposed denitrification for those reasons.
Okay, yeah, no, fair enough. I wondered if that might be a way to also increase the setback from the bank if we're not basing it on the location of the current septic system. even as a stopgap until the sewer system comes in. But that was just a question. And then I would really like to see what Natural Heritage has to say. Is there any idea of when that letter might be coming in?
They
When
have
we might expect it?
30 days to comment from when they receive the application. I don't know what.
It went in about 2 days before I
Okay.
submitted.
So we should be receiving it
Okay.
by next week at the latest, I would think. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sarah, I just will say that the like urine diversion, there's not like state recognized methods of doing that, and you have to do it on basically like a trial permit. So you could work with the group on the base to like try and get on their permit, but it's not like an easy thing to do. I've looked into it a bit, and it's not that easy. It would be great if they could do it, but it's not. There's no way for the Board of Health to really approve it because there's no recognized method in place. Yeah.
Yeah, that's helpful to know. I know that, you know, the group of residents that have come together for the Safe Mashpee Wakeby Pond Alliance were promoting urine diversion systems at their last annual meeting, and I know the technology is there. It may not be something that Cape Cod is caught up to, but we do have a center here on Cape Cod. I think it's called even the Eco Toilet Center or something. But they have a lot of information on how you can do this within the existing regulations. And then, of course, it's something that we as the Conservation Commission, as a sidebar, might want to consider talking about in terms of performance standards, especially for the properties that we're looking at right on the water. But it is available. It was just a question to see if that was something that had been looked at as an alternative for the long-term health of Mashpee Pond.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? I'll go out to the public. Yes, sir.
I'm one of the abutters, William Daniels. And
Sure.
We allow them to use one of the mics.
Come up to the microphone and
I'm one of the abutters myself, William Daniels, on the big lot, and I own a right-of-way in between. To the north, I own a right-of-way I have a deck down there.
I'm sorry, the recording is hard to hear. Do you mind giving up your seat for a moment so you can be in front of the microphone?
I have some pictures, and I have a letter writing my...
Sir, can you have a seat so you can be close to the microphone? We're having a hard time picking up audio on television. Thank you. Appreciate it.
How about Lee, you want to come up? Sure. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I'm hard of hearing and everything else.
Sorry about that.
I have some pictures that are current and some real serious questions on this. I could understand it if it was an engineered plan, but I don't understand it, so I need some input from you folks. And I made some pictures in my letter with my things, and my daughter made one for everybody, for all of you, so can I?
absolutely. Yep.
Who's the chairman? So I have the one that's I signed originally.
Thank you.
Thank you, William.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
So again, my name is William Daniels, and thank you for hearing me. So that, I have those issues there, and I wonder if this proposal is practical at all environmentally. And maybe only one or two of you have been to the site, so with the pictures there. So it's unclear to me, and I need to learn some more about this project, because the plan that was submitted and what they submitted was by a surveyor, not an engineer. And I think that before the board makes a decision, they ought to have an engineer or somebody like that do that. I understand, if I'm correct here, that historically these structures can be demolished and replaced. I think that when I read your regulations, it said replacement may be allowed for damaged structures in such sensitive areas. Is that correct? maybe?
I'm not
What-
sure which regulation.
It's not, well, we have several regulations that, may apply to this particular, but there's no regulation that limits reconstruction based on existing damage. It's really, the commission looks at a proposal. There's no limitation on what can be proposed. And then they look at the regulations and see how that proposal meets the regulations in general. There's
Okay.
no outright prohibition or limitation on a rebuild based on a damaged structure. That's not part of our regulations.
Okay, have you been provided with the damage?
Yes, I've been to the site multiple times. I'm very well aware of the existing conditions, yes.
So the house can't be fixed?
I'm only going by what's being proposed, and like I just said, the commission can listen to the details of the proposal which they have, and then based on the regulatory provisions in place, make a determination as to whether or not they will create adverse impacts or improve the site, or
Okay.
just be completely innocuous.
Right. So in the designing there, it includes a walkout basement with windows and a patio, which you had referred to, the plan appears to be a three-story building and instead of the two that exists there. So if he's going to have a full basement with windows and everything to use to go to a patio, he's got the same thing that he's got right there, and he's adding an additional story above ground. I thought that the provisions allowed them to replace what was there. So he has only one story above ground, which you see when you come in there. But I don't know. That's just the way I looked at it. So it includes that basement, and then it has one level above it. So that would be 3 levels, which is, his last plan shows that. It also seems that the project has been planned by a sanitation designer and a land surveyor, and in light of the significant environmental concerns, it appears to me that a professional environmental engineer should be engaged by the town or your board before they approve a project like this. I feel that the thing that was submitted by the surveyor and the thing omits some facts about this. I didn't get the information until Monday. My daughter requested all the stuff for me. I didn't get it till Monday, and really haven't had a chance to, just tell you how I feel. I guess I haven't been able to get anybody, an attorney or anybody to help us here. So I wondered, it seemed to me that this project is being done at the pleasure of the owner to develop a year-round home on a sensitive 12,000 square foot lot. He's going to be using a third of the lot. And 2 years ago, when he put the new septic, the new deck, all the repairs, he told me the house was in good condition this spring when he came down and opened it up. And we're both neighbors. He's to the north, I'm to the south. And now it's a demolition house, and he's moved his people in. So I think that that's bothers us to a great extent. Also, if he's going to have increased year-round occupancy, is the present septic system acceptable for that? He's only here like in the summer from, May, June, July, something like that. And more importantly, I have not seen any comprehensive information regarding the significant and potential detrimental aspects caused by the demolition of this structure. When you look at the if you look at picture, I gotta separate this. If you look at picture number 1, the north side of the house, that's taken, that thing is from my deck as I walk down to our dock. If you look at that angle there, when they take that house out of there, all of those trees, there's 5 or 6 of them or whatever, and a lot of small growth. When they take that growth out of there and the vines, they can't miss taking the roots out. The roots are either under the house or whatever, so they're going to weaken all those, and it's only 9 feet between there and my property. They can't miss. I don't know how they could. So I think that's a consideration there, that an engineer would be able to help you folks make the right decision. Also, the existing structural, as was mentioned, is in the bank, in the north side of the bank. So plans to remove the structure and dig a foundation for a new structure further back from the shoreline into the embankment would destabilize the current and fragile shore conditions. I don't know how it can miss. I used to operate a backhoe and a bobcat and those kind of things years ago before I retired, and I just can't see how you can't, and that environment in there is so, if you come to my dock and meet me and you take your foot and put it on the bank, all the leaves and stuff, you can't even walk on it. It's very, very dangerous there, and we've been trying to protect it since, when I bought it, an attorney owned it, and he had cut down all kinds of trees and did everything in the Conservation Commission years ago. If any of you were here, I haven't even been before one, and it's been a difficult thing to maintain. And not only will the demolition and the construction create a significant impact on the embankment, it would affect, if those trees go and then my stairs go, it affects his house. It's going to have an effect. And when they made the decision on his house, the basement is the same thing. The Conservation Commission did not allow him to move that around because of the bank. Correctly? That was my father, yes. Yeah. So needless to say, that is going to be there. And then we all know about the wildlife habitat, so there's no sense in getting into that. And I wondered if any plans had been submitted or any assurance given to the board that will ensure demolition and removal of the existing structure and construction will not destabilize the damage the surrounding areas adjacent property. Have you been given any information on that?
That was not part of the proposal.
I mean, these are questions, I'm really nervous about this. And just, if not more concerning, this is a very important thing, the existing swale drainage on the south side of the property in the pictures you see. Okay, when he put the septic system in or had it installed, they had a one-car driveway. Now they park 4 cars and 2 boats. So I don't know how many square feet that takes. It doesn't, without an engineered plan, I don't know of the lot. It appears from their plan that the tool shed is too close to the right-of-way. The lot line, it should be moved away. And the little loom pile and some of that stuff is in the road layout. So, so when we go to the swale and you take a look at it, and this is very important, I would like to have whoever goes, if you look, it's picture number 4, and if you look at the picture, my daughter took these, and you see this area here that looks like sand? Well, when they lowered the lot and put the septic in and put the drains in, they disturbed that bank, and if you go and take a good close look, you can see where the bank line is, and right in that area where they did it, and that affects some of the growth in there. So if we got a 20-inch rainfall like they're getting in some places in the United States right now, it goes down that swale because all the water from his house, the next house over, my extra lot, my house, and Mrs. Nichols, Barbara Nichols' house, all that water goes down, and I've seen it hold in my land there. I used to have his dad, Peter's dad used to park, and mother used to park under our oak tree there instead of in the house, and I've seen that thing fill up and then go into that swath, and I think that if that fills in, if you please have somebody go look at it, you'll see that there's vegetation on Barbara's side, but there's not where they did that work 2 years ago. And then when I look, you already have seen the pictures that he made, so I don't want to get you guys going too late here tonight, but I think that, let me make sure of my notes I made here. So I think that any disruption on the embankment, in the embankment of the swale area will over time impact the natural flow of water there that's been ever since we came. And those are the kind of things that I'm concerned with, and that's conservation and my daughter. There was no plans for that. I was told I live in a stone house. I'll be briefly, I'm sorry, I know I'm tired too. I usually go to bed at 8 o'clock sometimes, so anyway. But I live in a stone house. When I bought that house, there were all kinds of problems there. And I got a specialist in the stone thing. And he looks at me and he says to me, "See that stone? How old is it?" And I was dumbfounded by the question. And then he said, "You can fix any kind of a stone house, period." And I've called him since I got this, and he said he's sure that, he rather doubts that that house is bad in that few days, because Mr. Peter here told me that it was okay when they came in there. So I think that it appears that repairs to the existing structure would probably be a lot more cost effective, but more importantly, they would save the embankment, and the demolition is going to damage it. It can't miss. It already has. So you can look at that one there, and so my question, I guess, to the board: would it be practical to have a structural engineer or an expert in that area, see whether or not it's necessary to demolish that house? I don't know if that's an unrealistic request that you do or whatnot, and that would ensure the stability of the bank, because that house has been there for 94 years, and the person who put it in did a pretty good job, so.
Yeah, so Mr. Daniels, I think I hear what you're saying. You really, we would never tell someone that they can't modify their house interiorly. Like, if they want to renovate their house, they can renovate their house. Even, we're not getting into that side of it. I agree with you that the need for dry wells, the understanding of the drainage and the swales, and making sure that the vegetation is protected, and that we can not make sure that your trees aren't compromised 9 feet away, bordering their property. And we don't want any of the trees on the bank compromised. So I think those are the things that you're asking us to really look at.
And the swale, it's on the south side.
The swale.
That's a natural thing that's been there forever. All the water from all the neighbors, even up the street, when we've had a hurricane or 2 or 3, we haven't had a hurricane since I've been up here, but a northeaster, a lot of them, the water fills on mine first, and if that fills in and whatnot and doesn't grade properly, then it's going to affect Barbara's cottage too, because all of that is really low when you get on that end.
Okay.
I think there's some serious issues there that, in my opinion. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure. Can I have your name and address for the record?
My name's Tanya Daniels. I live at 26 Melissa Ave. And my father just spoke. He had some questions, but I was wondering, on a lot this size for reconstruction, what the limits for the proposed structure square footage, how it's taken, how it's estimated, the height limit, how is it proposed? And does the project he's putting before you meet the criteria? He's given us a rendering of what he plans to do. I'm sure he's given you that rendering. And I wondered if his proposals even meet the criteria for a 12,000 square foot lot, part of which is that long swale that goes down the entire side of the property.
Right. That would not come under the purview of the Conservation Commission. That's the Zoning Board of Appeals. Okay. They are the ones that will look at the lot coverage and whether it's feasible or not.
Okay. And as my father stated, that left side to the north, as it goes down the hill, it becomes closer to our property line, the house and the embankment. So very, very concerned, as we know, everybody knows that the embankment is unstable, and has been sensitive over the years. Taking a machine in and pulling that wall out is going to disturb that soil that's been up against it since the 30s. So washout is a serious concern. When he installed even just a heat pump pad on the side, and that it caused washout along that side. And so we really would like, like you said, there was not an environmental engineer who specialized in wetland erosion, so it does concern us that it's really being addressed. That drainage swale to the south side now, he's proposing to cut those elm trees and the poles there and take out the banking on that side. Now, his driveway literally borders the top of it since he enlarged it when he did the septic. And as my father pointed out, it never fully recovered after that, the embankment going down into the swale. Will the cutting of those trees, you can see the roots, when you see it, my pictures aren't great, I'm sorry, I didn't have much time. You can see the roots into that embankment. What happens when those die and it decomposes and is going to cause catastrophic fall-in of that natural swale, which all of, like you said, the landslide, this overflow for natural drainage into the pond. We don't want to create massive washout into the pond. We want it to filter naturally, I would think.
So part of the deliberation is to ensure that those scenarios don't happen.
Okay. So, well, thank you. I just was open to make sure that that is taken into account. And
Absolutely.
maybe somebody can put some eyes on it themselves to see how really steep that is in the condition. So that's
you.
all I have to say. Thank you for your consideration.
Sure.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
May I address some factual inconsistencies and all of that was presented? Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't think we need that. I think we're all set. I don't think we
Are
need.
you sure there's some, just absolute, okay, if you say,
Yeah.
that's fine. I'm happy to answer any questions related to any of those things, though.
Okay. Based on what we've heard, is there any other questions or concerns commissioners have?
I have some
Steve?
ideas if we're going to move ahead with a motion on this, conditions.
Turn it back to commissioners to see what your thoughts are based on what we've been presented with.
Okay. Well, the one is, I'd like to see the stake in at 2 foot on center for the, versus 5. That's what's said in the narrative is 5 foot. The septic system will need to be protected from excavators and so forth, so we don't have a failure there. And then, based on where the deck is and, construction on where the upper and lower decks will be, I'd like to see the micro-clover brought all the way across the back and around the, on the west and south sides. And then, there's a new retaining wall can be replaced where I assume there's you told me there's an existing retaining wall there. So I think mitigation will need to be carried up that bank and towards that beech tree, all the way along that side. So from that beach where you say U-pole removed, all the way down the bank along that wall to where you have vegetation area 4,
Yep.
and then wrapped around the corner all the way to that concrete walkway.
All right, so it's heavily vegetated now. Obviously, there'll be some disruption.
Right, but
Happy to replace that after the fact when we backfill, put it back to existing grade. We can
yeah,
mitigate
I'm
that
talking
wall.
about disturbed areas.
Yep.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Not existing vegetation, but
Yeah, I
disturbed
don't
areas.
see a problem putting that.
And then, just the materials on the lower deck. So you said it's going to be a 2-frame,
Yep.
wood frame deck. And, okay, what's going to be underneath the deck? Is it going to be stone or to, mitigate any runoff from water coming through the deck?
Yep.
Yeah.
That could be like a condition that we just, whatever material is most suitable to prevent that situation
Yeah.
from happening.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
In a heavy rainstorm, everything's coming through the deck boards and.
Oh, yeah,
could
no,
get a washout.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree.
So those are my concerns and/or conditions we can put on an order of conditions.
I didn't see in the methodology or fully understand, and I do agree with the Daniels family in questioning whether or not taking out the old, like doing a whole new house, if it's 9 feet from the edge of what they're taking out to their lot line, how can they ensure that their neighboring trees are protected? That by them taking out that foundation, which I'm sure it has the roots wrapped around it, how can they do that and make sure that no trees are compromised on the neighboring property? That's my question.
I think one of the things that was thrown out there was, as a suggestion, was to bring in a requirement for a structural engineer to do kind of an assessment on, existing trees, roots, what would be compromised as a result of excavation. I mean, other than that, it would be conditioning to restore these areas, and we still don't know what's coming from natural heritage, and based on what they required for 104 Lakewood, it's probably going to be substantial and change what you're seeing that's proposed here. But I don't see any issue with having a structural engineer kind of take a second look at things, just to ensure that, what's being excavated and what's going to be, possible damage to surrounding vegetation as a result. I think that's a reasonable,
So do we give them an opportunity to continue this, wrap in all of our concerns in a new, with what you come back with for a future hearing? And at that point, wrap in natural heritage concerns so that
I think that makes sense.
have everything and it's not just 1,000 conditions?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
I mean, I like to condition to approve, but it feels like this is a little bit more than that.
Yep.
Peter, is that area that's 9.9 feet from the northern property line, is that I couldn't remember when I visited today, was that a 1 or 2-story section there?
That's currently the lower level. It's got part of the upper level above it. That's actually a really great point, and to address the question. So that is a stone wall, that northernmost wall of the house, and that is actually the closest portion to the Daniels property right now. I think that's what you were just asking about.
Yeah.
And actually, I had a discussion on site with one of the conservation agents about when we do the demolition, actually trying to leave that wall intact for the very reasons that have been raised, to minimize any disruption to the bank. I'm closer to the water than anybody. I want to disrupt the bank as little as possible. That's part of the reason we're moving back and not even trying to build on the same footprint. We are cognizant of that. So part of the intent there, what we would hope to do, and we'd have to, obviously talk to, a building department, but it does not appear that it would conflict with the proposed new foundation. By leaving that, it will minimize disruption and in fact take away that excavation at 9 feet, because if the wall's left, obviously it's not being excavated, and any of the excavation would be inside of that 9 feet towards our property, and wouldn't, we don't want to go that way. We don't want to damage the bank at all, and that's part of the whole concern with the house. The closest part of the new house would be like 18 feet, 17 feet.
It's on the other plan.
Anything else?
I would just think a continuous would be a good idea, just to hear from Natural Heritage, because that could really change the whole
scope of it.
Scope of it.
Yep.
So I think just based on that alone, it's worth waiting to hear from Natural Heritage.
And what was the date on the letter itself, the application?
What was the application date submitted to DEP? roughly.
What was the deadline for this meeting? Because it was, I think, the Wednesday or Thursday, so it was.
It was July 26th was the deadline.
24th,
Okay.
25th.
Yeah, so we should definitely have it by August 26th.
On the green card, the date they received it is there. We could, it's on that card. I'm not sure of that date.
I think either way, it should come in by the
By our
26th.
next meeting.
Yeah.
Would it be 30 days from when they sign the
It's
card?
30 days from when they sign the card. Yeah.
I mean, we need to move it out a month anyway because I can't attend the next meeting. So
Okay.
Okay.
that'll probably give us enough time if we move it to the,
So that would be September 12th.
fine.
So September 12th at 6:36.
Okay.
Okay, make a motion to continue to Ned Bessie Road, notice of intent filing to September 12th at 6:36. 6:36.
And I'll second.
Okay. A motion made and seconded for the continuance. Discussion on that before I call for a vote?
A quick question.
Yes,
Paul,
Sarah?
For the applicants, would you all be open to getting a structural engineer on site to take a look at what might be on your property side of that wall that might be disruptive to the neighboring properties' trees or, increase erosion? Would you all be open to getting another opinion when we come back on September 12th?
That's a question for the applicant.
Yeah, question for the applicant.
I can't answer that right now. This was just sort of sprung on me that
Right.
when you say structural engineer, and then the previous speaker was talking about evaluating the actual structure of my home, I need clarification on what exactly is being asked for. So I'm happy to.
I think,
I'm happy to
maybe
collaborate.
it may not be, we can have a discussion on who will be the most appropriate expert to evaluate, but I think the concern is really surrounding the excavation for the foundation and the impact to the neighboring trees. So whomever would be most qualified to do that assessment, that's what should happen.
Sure. Would you be able to provide some guidance
Well,
in
we
that
can
direction?
certainly try to help find someone who would be
Okay.
appropriate for that kind of evaluation.
All right,
Yeah.
perfect. Thank
Yeah,
you.
we can discuss that, and since it's not until September now, we definitely have some time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, of course we are. We don't, as I said, we don't want to damage the bank.
No, of course.
No.
But we want to be assured that, the full scope of impact is truly, transparent.
Certainly, of course. And may I also get a copy of the letter that was distributed to the?
Yeah, we can
Yes,
furnish a copy of that
absolutely.
for you.
Yeah,
Yep.
thank you very much. I
Sure.
appreciate that.
It's all public record.
Thank you. Oh, very good, thank you.
Okay, anything else before I call for a vote? We're good? All right, roll call vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So we'll see you on the 12th of September.
Thank you.
I want to get out of here before 10 o'clock so bad.
We have business to do after this
It was
next
like
hearing.
almost
They're
by
not
9
going
o'clock, but
anywhere.
then it just didn't happen. I know, there's still business to do.
If you didn't say, oh, no continuance, yeah, we're all set.
I know, I thought for sure we were gonna, our track record is not great.
Okay. I'm going to call the 6:48 hearing for 43 Little Neck Lane, Leonardo J. Caruso and Maria Elisa Caruso, trustees, the 43 Little Neck Lane Nominee Trust. This is a request to extend the order of conditions, DEP file number 0433134. Representative is Cape and Islands Engineering. And I don't see that.
So I did get
Someone's
some,
online.
yeah, there is someone, I think it's,
I think it's the owner.
yeah, the owner is on Zoom, but the Leo Caruso, who's the husband of one of the homeowners, did say that the reason, provided explanation for the extension request is that they've been going through some medical issues that have delayed project progress on this, so they're requesting extension as a result.
Okay.
That's easy.
Yeah.
Does she want to speak? She's online there.
Yes, good evening. I
Good
just
evening.
wanted to thank you for your consideration I've been having some medical issues for a while, so that's the reason why we cannot do we need more time to do the dog.
Sure.
Sure, understood.
Thank you.
Thank you. 3 years, is that what we're looking for?
I think that would be appropriate.
Okay. Okay. I would accept a motion.
Make a motion to, for an extension for 43 Little Neck Lane for 3 years.
And I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Alex. Motion made and seconded, 3-year extension. Any discussion? Hearing none?
Thank you very much.
Let me just take the vote, ma'am, and I'll want to finish the business. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Minutes.
Yeah.
November 16th.
Can we take a 5-second break? All right, I'm going to back up to pre- and post-hearing agendas. We have 3 sets of minutes. 2 of those sets of minutes we will not be able to deal with tonight because we don't have a quorum for either September 8th or August 11th. But the set of minutes for 11/16/2023, we do have a quorum present. That would be myself and Steve and Sandy. And you've been provided copies of those minutes. These are the ones that a draft have already been submitted to legal counsel for the bylaw appeal on 190 Monomoskoye Road. So if you've had a chance to look at those, I've looked them over. I didn't see any issues at all.
No.
But this would be the time to point out something.
I'm good.
You're good, Steve? Sandy, you're all set?
Yep.
Okay, then I would accept a motion on those minutes.
So moved.
Thank you, Steve.
Second.
Thank you, Sandy. No further discussion. Roll call vote. Steve?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So those minutes are now into the record.
Thank you.
We also have the approval of the executive session draft minutes from May 23rd of 2024. And eligible to vote on those would be myself, Alex, Steve, Sarah, and Sandy. Are you prepared to accept those minutes based on the way you've been presented with them?
Yep.
We're all set?
Yep.
Sarah?
I had one note. I just noticed at the top of the meeting that my name wasn't included in the
attendance
roll
list?
call.
The
Yes,
attendance,
and I
okay.
believe I was there at the top of the meeting, so.
You were.
Right. And I think that's been corrected. Alyssa, was that corrected on the?
So I feel like we've had that conversation.
Yes.
I think we did at the last, yeah.
Okay.
Right,
Yep,
yeah.
that
Great,
edit's
sorry,
been
that's
made.
my only note.
Don't want to leave you out.
That's my only note.
Okay. Is that it then? Okay, I would accept a motion on those.
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Steve. Thank you, Alex.
I was there.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on those? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay, so we're good with minutes. On our discussion items, I know, Sandy, when you were at the CPC meeting, you were asked about reorganization and being nominated to stay on that committee. And it was an oversight on my part. When we did the reorg, I forgot about the 2 representations, the liaisons that we have. So let's see if we can get these 2 out of the way. Are you still willing to sit on that committee, or do you want to give it up?
I will.
You're still willing. Is there anybody else that wants to sit on that committee and try to bump Sandy out of that position? Probably not. Okay, then I would accept a motion to approve Sandy as the Concom liaison.
So moved.
Thank you, Alex.
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Further discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes as well. Congratulations, another year of
Thank you.
CPC. A lot going on there. Environmental Oversight Committee, I'm the representative for the commission. I certainly have no qualms staying there unless somebody else wants to take that away from me.
And I sit on it as a member at
And
large.
that's
so
right,
I will
Alex
not-
is a member at large, so she's already there. So we're well represented, and occasionally one of the agents will come, and so, okay. No one else, then I would accept a motion.
Make a motion for you to stay on the committee.
Thank you, Alex.
Second.
Thank you, Steve. No further discussion. I'll take a roll call vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
And I'll abstain. There's no need for me to vote. Thank you. Bylaw Review Subcommittee. It's been a while since we've met. I know we've been kind of struggling to get feedback from all of the commissioners. I was kind of hoping to have official feedback from every member of the commission for our next review meeting, so that as a subcommittee, we could sit down and say, okay, this particular performance standard seems to be okay with the commission. This one doesn't. This is some of the suggestions that commissioners had, and we could kind of go through the list that way. At least I'm speaking for myself as a subcommittee member, but I know the other three are sitting right here, and I think that's pretty much what we had in mind. So I know there's still a few commissioners that we have not officially heard from. I mentioned this to Marjorie Claproot at the last meeting, and unfortunately, she's not here tonight, nor did I get a written, I was kind of
No.
hoping she'd send something, so we,
We could, Marjorie said she's gone for 10 days, so I don't think she's even going to be here for August 15th. But you could table this for August 22nd. That would allow plenty of time for comments
Yeah.
to be submitted. You'll have the presentation from Heather McElroy on the 15th,
With
which will
their
be
standards,
more information to take into consideration. And then
Mhm.
August 22nd would be a good date to
okay,
get the consensus.
okay.
That would be my
And
recommendation.
then assuming we get the consensus at that point, then we could schedule our next review
Yes.
committee meeting
Yep.
right after that, soon after that. as we
Yeah,
can.
exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
Rich, did you want to submit
I will have it
some
before.
comments?
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay.
Great, because you're certainly entitled to, I mean. All right. Chapter 173, Conservation Land Bylaw. Quite some time ago, we had an issue where a trail camera had showed up on one of the trees, and somebody was asking a lot of questions about that. The agents went out, took a look, and it was not authorized to be placed on town property, so that camera was taken down. It has since been returned to the owner, I believe.
Yes.
And the owner's been made aware of the fact that they should have come to the commission and asked, or at least notified the commission. As you know, we only have one regulation for Chapter 173, and that regulation did not specifically say trail cameras, but it does allude to if there's some activity that you want to conduct on conservation land, that you must come before the commission, or at least supply the commission with a written request for that activity, whatever it might be.
Correct.
So I know Drew has taken a step at revising Regulation 1 for Chapter 173, and we'd like to get that before the commission as soon as possible. Did you send that to?
I don't think I sent it to everybody. I might have just sent it to you just to.
I've got it on my computer. I know
Yeah,
that.
so why don't I'll send, or if you want to send it to everybody, that's fine. And we can put it as a discussion item on August 15th.
15,
Yeah.
yep.
I don't think it needs to go to the bylaw review subcommittee because it's so straightforward and simple.
Right.
But August 15th would be a good time to get a consensus from the commission if this is something. It just exploded from something extraordinarily simple. The guy got his camera back and then he started complaining that we don't have the wording in our regulation to take cameras, private cameras off of conservation land. So it kind of exploded into a big deal that really never should have been a big deal. But at the request of town manager, he said we should just make this clarification crystal clear in Reg 1.
Hang on a second. I mean, I don't fully know everything that happened, but
Yeah.
in the land that I've been a part of managing, if I don't really care if someone has a trail camera up.
I can cover that. So we've been having an explosion of trail cameras and weather stations and things of all that nature. Usually I see them from hunters, well off trail. You know, I'm not the type to stay on trail. I like to check things out,
Yeah.
evaluate properties. So those, I contact the hunters and they go and take them down, or I take them down and give them to them. The issue we have is that they're showing up on trails and people are watching people. And
Yeah,
that,
but so like, I mean, people put cameras on my trails all the time, and then will provide me with a detailed report of all the dirt bikes and illegal activity.
No,
and I'm
oh, yeah,
like,
no.
sweet.
That's
Like,
fine.
thank
We-
you.
we do have some
We're
of
not
that.
restricting them.
Yeah.
We just want to make it clear in the regulation that you have to come to the commission to ask permission.
So as a commission member, I don't really want to spend another 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half hour with someone asking if they can put up a trail cam. If it can be done administratively,
Yes,
that's fine.
I would be
Yes.
fine with that.
Yeah.
But I don't think that that needs
That-
to be something that we're talking about
that
here.
would be
No,
from the
we
commission's
could
purview.
certainly accommodate it that way. We just want to be aware, rather than going out in the woods and finding something we have no idea where it came from, who put it up, or for what purpose.
But it's also common practice for hunters to put up trail cams.
But these aren't hunters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This isn't,
Th-
this
this
is
is-
social media stuff that we're
Yeah.
finding, so
Yeah,
it's.
and we're getting I'm getting a very large amount of calls from residents who are beyond creeped out
Yeah.
with kids, with
Yeah.
dogs, everything.
Yeah.
You go back and you look at Regulation 1, I'm sure it was authored long before the technology of trail cameras
Yes.
came into
Exactly.
their heyday. So this is one more time where we're looking at regulatory language that has not kept up with today's environment.
Yeah.
This environment being technology. And I strongly believe that we should have the language in the regulation, and I also strongly agree with you that that could very simply be an administrative process.
Yeah.
Somebody wants to put a trail camera up. If they say good, they'll come and tell us. We'll know
Essentially,
about it.
I would
Yeah,
just
we
make
can
a
update
form,
the
and they
commission
would,
just based on what the request was, and just give you a brief synopsis
Sure.
of it, and
Yep.
call it a day.
Okay.
But just, we don't want to set a precedent that says it's okay for the public to do whatever they want on Concom land above and beyond passive recreation. That's
They're-
really what this is
they're
about.
bolting them into trees, they're strapping them into trees, they're going up 20, 30-foot tall ladders, bolting them into trees.
I mean, that's what I do too,
So-
because I want to know who's on the trails and what's going on.
No, absolutely, but this is just for social media or photography purposes. It's
I mean, if
just,
they're like documenting animals, like I've got scouts that'll do it
Mm-hmm.
and be like, hey, look at all the things I found on your property. They don't ask me first, and I don't
No,
care
but
that they didn't ask me
It would be
first.
nice if we knew.
It would be nice if we knew. I don't see any harm
and
in it.
we've never had a policy, any land con I've worked for has never had a policy for it.
Right.
But in the past 6 years alone, from working for this town and working for the past company I did, it's escalated to a point of neighborhood fights, to a point of lawsuits, to a point of irrational things.
Right.
But I think the best way to do this would be to say, develop the new policy in Regulation 1, and then literally we would draft a form, like a form you would fill out. You would look at the form, approve of it, edit it however you'd want as a commission, and then that would be the form they fill out, pass it to us, and we would approve it administratively. And then if you ever asked for a list of cameras, we could literally give you, not the locations exact of them all, but the properties and who has them out there. And also part of this would be, the way I've been settling this with the public is, I treat it kind of like a deer hunting stand. There has to be a tag on it with a phone number and a name, because it's easier for a public person to go and say, oh, it's John Schmo from down the street. It's
Yeah.
my neighbor, I'll just go talk to him, or it's so-and-so, I just don't care.
Right.
Where in this case, it's a trail cam directly on the trail facing a very obscure trails. It's not parking lots, it's nothing of that nature. So it just is really, really making residents uneasy and literally scared to even go in the woods. And that's something I want to ensure that is never an issue, because people need more time out in nature, I think.
Needs to be addressed.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if someone's gonna wanna put up a camera, you're gonna get their name, the chances of them doing something that they shouldn't be doing might
Right.
eliminate that, cause they know their camera's there and they know
Yeah.
who owns it.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Just more than not, I've usually found it being like people that just want to see what animals they can get on it,
Oh, yeah.
and it's not nefarious. Typically, I mean, if it's being used for drug runs, which is probably happening too, I get that.
I took
but,
one
like,
down. This is the funniest one. In the middle of Mashpee River. And the father just put it out there so him and his kids could watch what was walking on the trail from their house. They logged into it from their phone and they watch it from their house. It was all remote.
Oh,
And
that's weird.
it was very weird,
That's
but
weird to watch it from
I
home.
talked to the person and he's like, no, my kids just wanted to see if there was a coyote or see if our chickens were getting out and going on the trails, and
Right.
just seeing what was on it was just the most innocent thing, but it was like, please tell me next time.
Yeah.
Just let me know you're putting it up there. That was all. And this
Okay.
was one of the ones like you would see at a Home Depot, where
Yeah.
you could actually move it.
Oh, yeah, that's not,
So I was getting calls of this camera's
That's not-
following people as they walk, and I'm like,
no,
that's definitely a red
that's
flag.
definitely not what I was
So,
picturing.
yeah.
You
That's
know,
not what I was
but it
picturing.
turned out to be innocent in all reality, so.
Hopefully.
Luck be have it, so.
Well,
You
it
know,
would be
I'm
good to-
gonna chime in here too, just as a resident and community member. I think I would err on the side of the folks that are super creeped out by people putting cameras on the trail. I used to do enforcement for state parks, and that would have been like without question, not permitted.
Yeah, state
on-
parks
on
have a.
state recreational lands.
Yeah.
Like without question. And I think that one of the things we need to consider if we are going to create provisions that allow private cameras on public access land is just some signage to let people know that they're being filmed, or that the camera's rolling.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's back in the woods and it's for hunting and animal tracking, that's totally different. But if the expectation is that this is a trail where people are recreating, I do think that it would be our responsibility to ensure that the folks that are utilizing that trail know that there's a camera there if we know that there's a camera there. So I would put that forward to whatever administrative, regulation we're gonna have
Yeah.
on permitting cameras on the trails.
And when it comes to land use policy for the state, I know the state has a varied policy when it comes to DCR. Fish and Wildlife, it can be up for 10 days, and then they go and remove it and throw it out. There is no giving it back. So other entities within the state have their policies, and for them, it's just what they have said and have set up, that's all. So I don't want to be destroying cameras if we don't have to.
Right.
I'd rather the person come and pick it up, and then that gives me the opportunity to talk to them in education lesson, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get that regulation out, and you can take a look at that.
She has a question.
I have a question.
Oh, yes, Alyssa.
Is this something that you guys just discuss and then agree upon, and then there's no public meeting for this?
No, it has to go through the Home Rule Authority,
Process.
just like any other regulatory
Whole
change.
process
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everything? Okay.
Yeah, there'll be public comment.
I also agree. I don't feel comfortable whatsoever with having
Yeah.
someone's camera on the trail. I keep my kids off certain things. We have way too many problems going on right now.
You're not on a microphone, he can't hear you.
Sorry. Do you want me to say my name too?
Yeah.
Might as well.
Do it.
Alyssa Pinto. So my concern is safety.
Yeah.
I don't allow my children to go.
Freudian slip.
I don't allow them to go on social media. I prefer no pictures being on there for them. I do agree that notification, like we should be notified prior to, but I also feel like it is a public trail too. So if I felt like I wanted to go to Mashpee River that day for a walk,
Yeah.
then I see signage and I'm like, great, well now I have to go somewhere else.
Right.
And then, so would there be like a consideration of some trails? We won't allow public cameras so that for people who don't feel comfortable, we do have an alternative option at least.
Yeah. I think that conversation will happen when it gets put onto an agenda. And
Okay.
we'll revisit it, but yeah, certainly understand your concerns.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? No? Guess we're all set. Okay, so we'll get that regulation out, and we'll deal with that on the 15th.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
And while I'm on that subject, the August 15th quarterly meeting, I have a copy, a draft, if you would, and I can tell you that that meeting will not be televised, as it says here. Will that be Zoomed, Drew, by any chance?
There will be a Zoom component, yes.
There'll be a Zoom.
Yeah.
Okay, and
And we'll
this,
be in this room too, so,
it's in this room.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
And this will have to be finalized by, I'd like to have it finalized by Monday. That gives us some breathing
Monday
space.
would be good.
Yeah,
That one upstairs would appreciate it.
right. So I'll get a copy of this to everybody in your email tomorrow, and take a look at it. And if there's anything you want to add to it, feel free to do that. And then I'll take a look through it and tell Drew what we're doing, and we'll get it posted up.
Okay.
Okay? Our next discussion item is water quality issues and initiatives. Anybody would like to speak on that issue, water quality? No? I did attend the Wacoya Bay annual meeting last night. That was heavily attended. There were people standing outside the building looking in the windows. So there's a lot of concern about sewer rain and the Wacoya watershed and, you know, what's going to come next, and a lot of really good conversations. The next item on our agenda is Regulation 25, discussion on draft performance standards. And as I said earlier, we're going to get the feedback from Marjorie and Rich, and we'll get that on to the August 22nd meeting.
Correct, yes.
Right, so we will not have that on our agenda for the 15th meeting next Thursday.
Right.
But it will be on for the 22nd. By that time, we'll have everybody's feedback. But if you do not know, there is going to be a presentation by the Cape Cod Commission on some floodplain standards that they are putting together, and that's going to be at our meeting on the 15th. So it'll be interesting.
That'll be in the beginning of the meeting.
Right, she's up first.
Yeah.
Yep. So it'll be interesting to see what they have to chime in with. That'll be very helpful.
I want to make a comment about the water quality issue.
Sure, come on up. After 9:30, we relax our rules here a little bit.
Very short. Lynn Barbie, Surf Drive. My comment is a very broad issue about water quality, and that is about the machine gun range. And I want people to please remember that there's still a lot of pressure from the National Guard to still do the machine gun range on our sole aquifer. And we need to reach out to the governor and remind her that that is not the right place to be doing a machine gun range on our sole aquifer. So I just wanted to make sure that people have that on their agenda because it's still floating out there. And I have buttons for that.
I sent my
Thank
letter in
you.
yesterday. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm covered.
Thanks, Lynn.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? No? The next topic that we have is the resignation of Commissioner Erin Copeland. Erin has passed in her letter to the office. I believe it's going to be dealt with
Monday.
at the Select Board meeting on Monday?
Correct.
So it'll be official as of then, but I would certainly take this opportunity to thank Erin for her years of service. I remember she came on as associate and then moved up to full, and was very instrumental on a lot of the projects that we have. So I'll miss seeing her at the table. Okay, updates, and I'll turn that over to...
Yeah, I can go through these real quick because I know we all want to split out of here. Just real quick, Chopchick Bog restoration, the construction bid has been posted to Mass Central Registry Combis to solicit responses to the construction bid. We've gotten 8 in a day and a half
Wow.
requests for bids.
That's
Not
not
submission,
typical.
not submission of bids, but
It's not.
requests for the bid documents. So people can, companies, 8, yeah,
Wow.
already. So there is going to be a pre-construction bid meeting at Chopchick, and that will be on August 15th at 1 p.m. If anyone's interested or has the time to go there. It'll be myself and Neil Price from Horsley Witten, Elizabeth Sanciola from Division of Fish and Wildlife, and a few other folks there. The Native Land Conservancy will be there because they're going to be the holders of the conservation restriction on Chopchick. So it'll be just to answer questions from contractors who have, any questions about the construction bid package. Mostly Neil will be providing the answers because he's the one that drafted the whole document. So, but anyone who's interested, that's August 15th at 1 o'clock. Mashpee River Restoration, Conceptual Restoration Kickoff Meeting will be on August 13th at 12:30 here in this room. That'll be hosted by Tig and Bond. Catherine Laurent will be here, myself, a few other folks, stakeholders, and then we're going to go to different site visits along the Upper Mashpee River to identify specifically these areas where the conceptual study will take place to improve fish passage. That's the whole purpose of this, and to improve the fish ladder as well. So those are the updates that. One last thing about Fish Pond, Santuit Pond Fish Ladder, NRCS. We did consult with tribal members regarding the conceptual redesign and amendment to the existing fish ladder to improve fish passage. And NRCS is working on a response to the tribe asking if dam removal is an alternative, and they have submitted that information. It's not really an alternative because Santuit's very shallow, and if you open it up and remove the dam, it's going to remove a lot of spawning habitat. But all that information will be sent to the tribe, and we'll have a conversation on that and keep moving forward on a redesign.
Yep.
Yeah. That's it.
Okay, great. Communication and correspondence, I believe we're empty with that. Any additional topics that anyone would like to bring up?
I just have a question.
Yes, Sarah.
For Drew and Dan, with the Mashpee River conceptual redesign event and tour, is that open to the public? And is there some sort of like flyer that talks about the different sites and some of the partners, some of the work?
That's a good question. It is open to anyone who wants to attend it. I don't know if it's open wide to the public, but if you wanted to attend, any commissioners, I don't think it would be a problem for anyone to attend. I'll see if I can get some sort of like an agenda for you. Yeah, I'm sure Tig and Bond is probably working on that. Maybe they'll send it out tomorrow, but I'll reach out in the meantime and get something, so we can have a list of where we're going and what time and things like that. So
That'd be great. Thank
yeah,
you.
no problem.
Okay. I'd accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, thank you.
All in
Any
favor?
discussion? Hearing none. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Meeting adjourned at